Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has divine angel bloodline naruhina. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by the Silent Peacemaker and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. The birth of a celestial. In the shinobi world were the 5 great shinobi nations. The lands of fire, earth, wind, lightning, and water. Each were ruled by a lord or daimyo, and in each of these nations was a hidden village that trained and brought up future generations of shinobi. These shinobi would determine the power of the hidden village, and numbers mean strength. However, among the many nations, shinobi or not, the 9-tailed beasts resided. In time, they were all sealed into humans. These humans became Jinchuriki and were living vessels of the demon's power and soul. Power of the human sacrifice. One of the tailed beasts, the 9-tailed fox or Kyuubi no Kitsune, was found attacking the hidden village of Konoha one particular day. No one knew how or why, but the Kyuubi was completely annihilating the shinobi and many lives, shinobi or not, died. They died trying to protect the people, and defeat was to be expected, as the 9-tailed fox was the strongest of the tailed demons or Biju. It was said that the Kyuubi had the ability to cause tsunamis and earthquakes from just a swipe of its tail. So the villagers and shinobi died protecting their village, and still, none of their techniques or weapons proved to be useful, and all were useless to the power of the 9-tailed fox. The 4th Hokage, leader of Konohagakure and strongest ninja of said village, could not do anything either, and this meant that he would have only one option left. Performing a forbidden technique, he called upon the god of death, Shinigami, and made a deal with him. This deal was that the Kyuubi would be defeated and sealed into his newborn son, but in exchange for this was the soul of the 4th himself. This was the only way to defeat a demon of this degree, to seal the soul and power of an eternal demon into a living vessel whose chakra coils had not developed yet. Just before his soul was taken away, he asked the Shinigami to promise him something. The Shinigami, having gained respect for the late 4th Hokage and what he was about to do, agreed. Please watch him. I doubt the village will even consider my wish that he be treated as a hero, said the 4th, sadness evident in his voice. I see. Then I will fulfill your request. I will watch him, said the Shinigami in a deep voice. I see. Then, please begin, said the 4th as he prepared to die. However, he first took a last look on his son and spoke his last words, saying, I'm so sorry for the fate I've doomed you to, son. Please forgive me, my wish is that you be seen as a hero, not a target of hatred. Then the Shinigami began the ritual and forcibly took the soul and power of the Kyuubi and sealed it into the body of the newborn, and then took the soul of the 4th as his compensation and left, but not without saying, soon, the time for your true awakening will come, young one, and not even the demon will prevent you from reaching your destiny, celestial angel. Then the Shinigami left, leaving no trace of his presence. Although he helped protect the village and its future generation, the 4th Hokage never received his wish. Chapter 1. The Genesis. By the Silent Peacemaker. Disclaimer. Naruto does not belong to me. All rights belong to the creator of Naruto. However, the plot of this fanfic is mine. Do not steal. Thoughts. Words. Inako speaking. Kyuubi speaking. 5 years from the sealing of the Kyuubi and the death of the Yondaime Hokage, 4th shadow of the leaf, a little boy was running. Running from the group of people behind him. Eventually, due to his small physique, they caught him. Then they proceeded to torture, hurt, and maim the little boy till he was in a near-death state. We've done it. We've killed the demon, said one villager, and then cheers of agreement soon followed. However, they were cut off as masked figures suddenly arrived at the scene. What have you done? Said the weasel masked Anbu. We've done it. We've done what the 4th couldn't do, said one of the villagers. How dare you? You are the true demons here, as he is only the container, not the demon. No, he isn't. He is the demon. I've heard enough, said the weasel-faced Anbu. Anbu, leave none alive. And with that, the Anbu momentarily disappeared, and after a second, the bodies of the villagers lay on the ground. All dead. Then picking the boy up, the Anbu brought him to the Anbu hospital, as the regular hospital would most likely do more harm than help. The 3rd Hokage, Saratobi Hiruzen, rubbed his head in annoyance once again at the paperwork that he had to do. Then all of a sudden, the door opened, and a cat-faced Anbu went to the Hokage and spoke, saying, Hokage-sama, Naruto-kun is in the hospital again. And with that, the Hokage used body flicker, Shunshin, to teleport to the boy. Then Naruto-kun, are you awake? Said the Hokage. Gigi, said the boy, rubbing his eyes and then suddenly arching his back in pain. Naruto. Be careful. You're not fully healed yet. What happened, Gigi? Why am I here? Do you not remember Naruto? Last night, said a cat-faced Anbu. And with this, the memories came flooding back in, and Naruto suddenly cried. Why, Gigi? Why? Why do they keep attacking me? Said Naruto. I'm sorry, Minato. I couldn't fulfill your last wish, the 3rd thought in his mind. At night, as Naruto slept, he found himself in a clear forest meadow. Around him were flowers of all kinds, and the meadow looked like it stretched for miles after miles. Naruto then began to walk around the meadow, wondering just exactly where he was. "Welcome," said a figure, obviously female from the tone of voice. Naruto then turned to see just who this was, and when he turned, he saw a beautiful woman dressed in a long white robe that was supposedly like a tunic as it somehow was wrapped around her body. She wore golden sandals and on her right wrist was a golden bracelet while on the other wrist was a silver one. She wore around her neck a necklace with a crescent moon and a star. She had fair skin and pure golden hair that curled at the edges. Her eyes were golden color and looking at her, one would feel security and peace. She wore a smile on her face as she faced Naruto, and then she began to speak. "I am Hinako, the goddess of eternal blessing and harmony. I have seen your life, and I am not pleased." Hinako-chan, where are we and why are we here? "We are in the meadow of harmony and we are here to discuss you." Me? You okay then. Now listen carefully. In the world are different life forms. Plants, animals, humans, demons and angels. Just as Naruto was about to interrupt, she gave Naruto a look and he immediately went silent. In society and in current philosophies, angels are known as the embodiments of light and good. However, that is not completely true. Angels are neither good nor bad and they live for different reasons. Each angel is special in his or her own way, and because of this, we angels have different abilities. Some angels specialize in combat, some in flying, some in healing, some in elemental combat, and some in stealth. I see. Please go on then Hinako-ni," said Naruto, absorbing the newfound information. Among the angels are the celestial angels. Oblivious to the outside world, Naruto was actually being watched carefully by the Hokage and the three Anbu. "I'm so sorry Naruto. I've failed you and your father, forgive me Minato. I hope you're alright Naruto-kun. You'd better get well soon Gaki. Those stupid fools will soon see who you truly are Naruto-kun in due time. And you are a celestial angel. One of my own. Wow. I'm really an angel and a celestial as you say I am? Yes, it is true. But I'm not smart Oni-chan. That is because of something that those foolish humans put on you, a restricting seal." "A restricting seal? What's that in WY? It would seem that those foolish humans believe you to be weak." But then Hinako took a hold of his hand and pulled him towards her while uttering words from a different language. "Purgatio vox of celestial angelus, cleansing power of the celestial angel. Take a habitum of mu successio manus, take a hold of my descendant's hand. Quod purgo him intemporal leader, and cleanse him eternally." And immediately different seals began to show up on Naruto's whole body, including the Shiki Fuin, seal that keeps Kyuubi, and one by one, they each floated over his skin and broke into pieces like broken glass. The seals turned white when they broke, then they faded away, and his clothes also ripped under the pressure. A bright light then engulfed the meadow, and Hinako covered her eyes with her hand while staying at a safe distance from Naruto, who was screaming in pain. After the light cleared out, Naruto was seen on the ground and a white tunic covered him, and he also had pure white wings, not quite big though. Next to him was a tall figure of a man. He had blood-red hair and was clothed in a dark red yukata, which was adorned with golden foxes that came together on the left side of the yukata. The foxes looked as if they were real as they were golden color. The man had shoulder-length red hair that was neatly tied in a ponytail. The man wore black sandals, and on his right ring finger was a golden red ring, also adorned with a fox. Besides the ring, he also wore a black necklace with a fox charm hanging on it. The man's face was well developed. He looked very mature and had an aura that demanded respect. On his cheeks were 3 thick whiskers, and he seemed to have a shocked face, and long fangs could be seen, extending from the inside of his mouth. "What? Where am I? Welcome Kyuubi to my domain. I am Hinako, the goddess of eternal blessing and harmony." Wow. Hinako-sama. Then Kyuubi bowed down on his knees. "Please stand Kyuubi. I am pleased to see that you are quite respectful, but we must discuss your host, Uzumaki Naruto." Kyuubi then stood up with a solemn look on his face and then spoke. "I see, so what do you wish to speak of, about the kid?" "Well, he is a celestial angel, one of my own, and considering what has been happening to him since his birth, I felt the need to speak to him and to tell him of his heritage." "A celestial, I understand what you mean Hinako-sama, but I've been doing all I can for the little kid. I heal him when he is hurt, but the seal kept my power from interfering." "I see. Thank you for helping Naruto-kun, Kyuubi. I was there when Minato-kun had to seal you, and I know that it was that disgusting snake man Orochimaru who caused you to go berserk. You know. I thought I would be punished for the near destruction of that village, but I see that you know what really happened. Well, anyway, concerning the kid's heritage, I will tell him myself. He needs to know the truth, everything." Then Kyuubi turned to Hinako, eyes wide. Everything? You mean everything? Of course, he deserves to know everything, but we must train him." "Train him? Are you sure Hinako-sama?" "Yes Kyuubi. I really do mean it. His wings have already started to develop, so we must plan now. We will speak to him when he wakes up. Of course, Hinako-sama. Now, concerning his training. Okage-sama, he still hasn't woken up and probably won't yet for a long time. Are you sure you want to wait? Said the Medicanbu. Don't worry, Rin. I will wait, said the old Hokage. Hi Hokage-sama, Rin said, and then left the room to get more medical supplies if needed. So besides the two of us, there will be another who will also teach him. Yes, Kyuubi. There will be another. However, his time has not yet come. I see, so for now, it will just be the two of us. Yes, for now anyway. The two of us are enough for him. Well, since the seal is gone, am I able to be free? Well, you will stay in his mind for a while, but you are free. In a way, but don't worry. The cleansing spell I used not only cleansed him for those restricting seals, but his whole body. He no longer has those whisker marks or the ignorant brain that he once had. However, he should still be able to call upon your chakra if needed. Okay then Hinako-sama. Well, I am happy that his ignorance is finally gone. What about the whisker marks and the sudden growth spurt? Surely, the Hokage will notice, or probably already has noticed, that. No, only you and I know of this. I have cast an illusion on him for the time being, so that no one will know of the sudden changes. However, while I am not pleased with the current Hokage, I am glad to know that he has been trying to protect Naruto-kun, even if it's not enough, at least he tries. So you will tell him then? In due time. I see. Then Naruto's wings slowly faded away and his eyes slowly opened and he blinked. Naruto, POV. Urg, what happened? Where am I? Then as I was thinking, I remembered. Hinako-ni. What happened? I turned to her immediately and then saw some tall guy with red hair next to her. I was about what? Who's the tall guy with red hair? Naruto-kun, please calm down. I will give you all of your answers. Then after hearing her voice, I calmed. It was amazing. When she talked, it felt like peace overtook me. Well, kid, since you want to know who I am, let me tell you a story. I was about to say something, but then Hinako-ni gave me a serious face, so I just closed my mouth and listened. One day, there was a fox with his mate and kits. The fox and his family lived in a cave in the middle of a forest. The fox left the cave to hunt for food for his little kits, but when he came back, his kits and mate were dead. The fox was obviously angry and when he smelled the cave, it smelled of snakes. So the fox left the cave and smelled the air for any snakes. The fox smelled snakes in the north, in a village called Kanahagakure. The fox then went berserk because of the sudden loss of his only family. As the fox was destroying the village, thinking that the snake man was there, a blonde ninja, known as the Yondaime Hokage, sealed the fox into a child who was just born. Why are you telling me this? Screamed Naruto, fearing what the answer would be. You're the child, Naruto. The fox was sealed into you. Adifacio pectus pectoris ud illic existo haud lies, open the heart that there be no lies. And no. It can't be. The Yondaime killed it. He killed the nine-tailed fox. Then this time Naruto screamed and was about to run, but he didn't seem to notice that Hinako had been casting a spell and had just finished. Permissum him animadverto verum, let him see the truth. Non-deceptio. No deception. Then Naruto's body shone white and he fell to the ground on his knees, the light still shining. Then the light slowly faded away and Naruto could be seen, on his knees. Kyuubi was not lying Naruto-kun. Now please stand up. Hinako was already in front of Naruto when he turned his head up and she was holding out her hand, a gentle smile on her face. Naruto then took her hand and stood up. The truth sometimes is hard to accept, but you must know the truth regardless the pain. This is something that you have to understand and accept Naruto-kun. The effects of the spell were clearly seen as Naruto's face was one of calm and understanding. I understand completely Hinako-ni. I will listen, but Naruto-kun. Now you have probably realized the truth about the Kyuubi from Kyuubi himself, right? Naruto then nodded to show that he did realize that. Well, it really wasn't Kyuubi's fault as he was trying to avenge his family. This snake man that Kyuubi speaks of is one of the three Sannin, Orochimaru. At the mention of his name, Kyuubi clenched his fists in anger and growled. However, Naruto's reaction was quite similar as Naruto not only clenched his fists in anger and growled, but he immediately screamed. What? When I see him, Naruto then began to speak of different torture methods, none of them pleasant. It's fine kid. Well, I'm happy that you also wish to destroy that disgusting man. Then Kyuubi sneered in disgust. You are currently not strong enough to do so. Naruto was about to retort when Kyuubi brought a hand to his mouth, silencing him. However, both Hinako-sama and I will train you and then that snake man will be nothing. So do you accept, Naruto-kun? Hinako now spoke. Of course. I accept. Ha ha ha, good. However, before we start training, Hinako-sama has something to tell you first. Okay then Hinako-ni, I'm listening. Naruto then sat down on the grass and was waiting, listening attentively. Okay, then Naruto-kun. I will tell you, but you must keep silent. Naruto nodded, showing that he was indeed listening. Well, Naruto, I will speak to you of your heritage. Naruto's eyes widened, but he still kept silent regardless. The Yondaime was far too gracious, and when he sealed Kyuubi, he did not take just any child, but he took his own. Naruto, the Yondaime Hokage Akanamika's Minato, is your father. Naruto then became angry that it was his idol and father who had made his life a nightmare, but before he could scream in rage, Hinako continued. However, Minato-kun did not intend to make your life a nightmare, Naruto-kun, as his last wish was that you be treated as a hero. It is obvious that the villagers and some ninja failed to do so, as they are too ignorant to see the difference between a demon and its holder. So your father died that day heroically, but his last wish was ignored by all, except for a specific few. I can say that your father was indeed very heroic and was a great leader. He loved the village very much, but if he saw what had happened to you, he would no longer be with the Shinigami, but would have actually risen from the dead just to destroy those ignorant villagers who failed to listen to his last wish. Naruto was now looking down, no longer angry at his father, but he was actually deep in thought. Does my father really love me? If he was alive, would he care for me? Then he suddenly jolted and looked up at Hinako. What about my mother? Then Hinako smiled at Naruto and began to pace around the meadow. Your mother was Kushina Uzumaki. She did not leave you or abandon you, but instead, she unfortunately died of childbirth, as the Kyuubi's attack caused her to suddenly become far too stressed, and she gave birth to you prematurely. The stress of the Kyuubi's attack and her premature labor caused her to die. However, she loved you very much, and while she only held you for a little while, she loved you very much and did not leave without a parting gift. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this. Parting gift. She left you, her bloodline. You are the last to have the Uzumaki bloodline, Donum de Angelus or the Tenshi, gift of the angel or the heavenly gift, Uzumaki bloodline. Besides that, your father also held a bloodline, the Vox Vastus de Ventus or the Ansei no Kase. The voice of the wind. So I have two bloodlines. Naruto exclaimed. Yes, you do. However, to be able to fully utilize the power of your two bloodlines, you must be trained. So you and Kyuubi are going to train me, right, Hinako-ni? Naruto said, tilting his head as he said this, making him look quite cute. Hinako laughed and said, yes, both Kyuubi and I will be teaching you. That's awesome. Ha ha ha, you find it fun for now, but when the training's over, you'll hate me. But what about Hokage Jiji? Won't he notice? Oh, don't worry, we will train you secretly. Awesome. So when do we start? Chapter 2. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. I only own the plot for this fanfic. Words, thoughts, Hinako speaking, Kyuubi speaking. It was a dark night and a storm could be heard. Thunder began to storm out and wind began its ceaseless howling. However, despite the cruel weather, in an Anbu hospital room were two figures. Both sleeping. The first figure was an old man who wore the robes of the Hokage and in his arms was a small figure. It was a small boy with blonde hair who wore civilian clothes which consisted of a blue t-shirt and black pants. The old man was holding the boy in his arms and the boy was hugging the old man through his small hands. Then the wind stopped and the thunder ceased its roaring. Thank you Jiji for everything, said the small figure, who began to tighten his hold on the old man. The old man all but smiled and a lone tear fell down on his face. He all but did the same as the small boy and just held tighter to the boy, but gently. And with that, the storm continued its tirade, the smiling face of the old man, never wavering. It was a bright morning for the people of Konohagakure no Sado. The sun shone brightly from its place in the heavens, and the sunlight bathed the scenery and houses of the people. It seemed that the storm had stopped and had been replaced with sunny weather. Slowly, the old man woke as the sunlight had radiated from the window to his still smiling face. Then shifting his head, he looked down and saw the small child still wrapped in his arms. Then the small child also stirred and woke up. He rubbed his eyes and looked up at the old man, then smiled. Good morning Jiji. Naruto was now seen holding the hand of his surrogate grandfather as they both walked the streets to the Hokage Tower, despite the glares and dirty looks. Then when they both reached the front of the said tower, the guard slowly parted and bowed before the old leader who himself bowed to them also. When they walked inside, the old man was greeted with different greetings from each worker in the tower. Good morning Hokage-sama. Good morning Sandaime-sama. Then as they drew nearer to the office, a woman who looked middle-aged suddenly rushed to them and bowed humbly. Good morning Hokage-sama. Then she stopped as her gaze drifted to Naruto and she sneered, but Naruto just gave her a glare. Excuse me, Hokage-sama, but why is it here? As she said this, she continued to sneer at the small boy. Then just after she said this, Naruto whispered, Iro at Dynamos, impious mulier. Be weakened, wicked woman. Then the woman fell to her knees, clutching her head. The Hokage seemed shocked and then turned to Naruto, who was sporting a look of indifference on his face. Then the woman fainted since the pain was too much to bear. What did you do Naruto? The Sandaime said, unsure of what else to say. Nothing Jiji. I mean, what can a 5-year-old like me do? Naruto said this with an innocent face. So the Hokage just sighed and ordered an Anbu to take her to the hospital. Then they entered the Hokage's office and the Sandaime sat in his big chair while Naruto sat in the chair facing him. Then Naruto suddenly had a serious expression and said, "We need to talk." Flashback. "We will train you tomorrow, but first, we will tell you the truth." Then Naruto immediately looked to Hinako, seriousness and determination shining in his little blue eyes. "As you know, your mother was an angel. However, she was a death angel." Naruto looked at her questioningly but did not speak a word. "You see, there are many different angels. Your mother was a death angel. Death angels were known for their abilities in silent killing, as well as their roles in destroying wicked souls. However, when my son, who was the leader of the angels before, made Eden and invited angels to join him, most of the death angels and a majority of all the other angels left with him. Only a few death angels and other angels stayed. Your mother's great-grandfather was one. He decided to build his own country, so here is Iden in the land of the whirlpools with the few angels that were left. However, as they were too little to start a country. Your mother's great-grandfather, Shin, decided to gather people who wished to live in a new country, and so, Yuzu no Kuni was born. However, there was a great war, and Yuzu no Kuni was no doubt greatly affected. In the end, Yuzu no Kuni was devastated, and only a few survived. These few people traveled to Konoha and began to live there. Your mother was among them and they treated her well as she was both kind and stubborn. She was the last surviving member of the Uzumaki royal family. The last angel. She grew up in Konoha and became well known. Her title was the Red Death. Many feared and respected her. She eventually fell in love with a man named Namikaze Minato who incidentally was also an orphan. They both secretly married after your father was announced the Yondaime Hokage. They eventually had you, but they kept it secret as they didn't want their enemies finding out. When you were only 8.5 months old, the Kyuubi attacked. Your father had to do something fast as many were dying to keep the Kyuubi away from the village. However, you know the true story of the Kyuubi's attack as Kyuubi himself told you. Then Naruto nodded. So your father hastily created the seal that would seal the Kyuubi in you, the Shiki Fuin. He never wanted you to inherit the fate of a Jinchuriki, but he could not bear to let some other child take that fate, so he decided thought you would be the only one worthy enough to keep the Kyuubi at bay. He really loved you Naruto-kun, and he entrusted you with that great responsibility because he knew that you were the only one worthy enough to do so. Well, your mother gave birth to you prematurely due to the effect of having the Kyuubi's killing intent surround the village. She eventually died since the stress was too much for her, but as I said before, she truly did love you. Then Naruto rubbed his eyes as tears began to pour out, but then Hinako hugged him tightly. After a few minutes she continued, but did not let go. Then the Sandaime Hokage brought you before the council, but no one knew that you were the son of the Yondaime. Only the Sandaime, Jiraiya and Tsunade of the Sanin knew. Then when he spoke to the council wanted to have you killed. Those foolish humans' demand was not met however, as the Sandaime immediately refused such a foolish requests. However, while the Sandaime was not there, the foolish humans placed restricting seals on you just to make sure. They trashed the last wish of the Hokage by celebrating the heroic death of the Yondaime, but at the same time they beat you, the legacy of their hero. I am very disgusted. Then Naruto hugged her tightly, then turned to her, a solemn look on his face. Don't worry Hinako-ni. Though they are but foolish humans, there are some who are not. Naruto smiled. He was no longer a brain-dead idiot, but his full potential was there. I understand what you mean Naruto-kun. Now let me continue. I said that you were a celestial angel, right Naruto-kun? Naruto nodded slowly, not quite understanding. Celestial angels are the highest of the angels. However, though they are highest, they are not arrogant fools or power-hungry people like those humans. Celestials are very calm, happy, and serene. They each special abilities and among the angels, they are very rare. They are treated with the utmost respect, but even though you are not treated respectfully, the angels will immediately respect you. We celestials have great potential and different abilities. Control over nature, a spirit bond, and healing abilities are but some of the abilities we have. So I will train you in the way of the celestial angel. Flashback end. What about, Naruto-kun the Hokage said uneasily. I want you tell me who my parents are. Naruto said seriously. Wadam Naruto-kun, your father died. Why don't you tell me the truth Jiji Naruto interrupted. The Hokage sighed and then said, okay then Naruto-kun. Then he dismissed the Anbu and then activated the privacy seals that prevented anyone from seeing or hearing what was going on inside. Your father was Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. Then Naruto smiled, I know, but tell me about him. The Hokage suddenly looked in shock at Naruto. How'd you know? Well, your father was a brave, loving man, and I want you to understand why I gave you your mother's surname. You see, your father had many enemies, especially in Iowa, because of his participation in the Third Great Shinobi War. He was known as Konoha's Yellow Flash, and in the war, he earned this title by annihilating squads of Iwa ninja by using one of his techniques, the Hiraishin, Flying Thunder God. That is why I gave you your mother's surname. To protect you from your father's enemies. I see, Jiji. Thank you for telling me. Now about my mother. Your mother's name was Uzumaki Kushina. She was a refugee from Yuzu no Kuni, which was destroyed during the war. She was a very stubborn, yet caring, woman, and she was well known. Her title was the Red Death. Wow, that sounds amazing, Jiji. So did they by chance leave anything for me? The Hokage laughed, then opened a secret compartment hidden in the wall and took out 2 scrolls. These scrolls are scrolls from your father and mother. It can only be opened by a blood seal and by a spirit seal. For the blood seal, you must place a drop of your blood on it, and for the spirit seal, inject some chakra into it. Then Naruto took the 2 scrolls into his small hands and smiled toothily. Thanks, Jiji. You're welcome, Naruto. Then the Hokage suddenly remembered something and took out a scroll from a hidden safe, also hidden in the wall, and gave it to Naruto. This is a scroll that your mother and father wrote. In it are the basics of being a ninja, as well as some very interesting information about certain things. Then Naruto took the other scroll in his hands, but seemed to be too much to carry, so the Hokage took out another scroll. He then took the 3 scrolls and sealed them inside the smaller scroll and gave it to Naruto. I've sealed all the scrolls into this small one so that you can carry it. It can only be opened by a blood seal. I have not personally read any of those 3 scrolls myself, but be careful. Then Naruto pocketed the scroll and then ran to the Hokage, gave him a hug, then smiled. Thanks, Hokage Jiji. I'll see you later. Then Naruto ran out of the room and the Hokage sighed as the door closed, then took out an orange book from his now unlocked cabinet and began to silently giggle perversely. So my parents really did care, even my dad. Naruto thought as he ran out of the Hokage Tower and to the Hokage Monument, where hidden behind the monument was a narrow valley. Flashback. Your training will be hard, but in the end, you alone will profit immensely. Naruto nodded, agreeing with Hinako. So now that I have told you about your mother, you'd also want to know about your father, right? Then Naruto began to nod and nod and nod until Hinako herself put her hand on his head and then she smiled. Your father was Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. He was also an orphan like your mother and grew strong. He was trained as an apprentice by Jiraiya of the Sannin until he was nominated to be Hokage. He also has a bloodline, the voice of the wind. This bloodline greatly complements your other bloodline, the gift of the angel or the heavenly gift. Your father's bloodline allowed him to develop the Hiraishin since he had not fully inherited all of the abilities of the voice of the wind. You, however, inherited all of the abilities of this bloodline. The voice of the wind allows you to speak to the wind itself, which is where it got its name from. Also, the wind can communicate with you and once mastered, you will have supreme control over the wind. However, due to the restricting seals placed on your body, you were unable to access your bloodlines, but once I removed them, you were able to utilize them. I will also aid you in learning to fully utilize your bloodlines, so don't worry. Then Naruto thought for a while and suddenly voiced a question that had just passed through his mind. What will Kyuubi do? That's it for now. I got more coming up, so please read and review. Then the updates will be quicker. Chapter 3. Disclaimer. I own nothing. Except for the plot of this fanfic. Words, thoughts, Hinako speaking, Kyuubi speaking, recap. So what will Kyuubi do? Oh, you'll find out soon, Naruto-kun. Just rest for now and be ready for tomorrow, Hinako said before she disappeared completely. Recap end. As Naruto ran to train behind the Hokage monument, one thought went through his mind. Maybe Kyuubi will tell me today. Then as he arrived there, he immediately went into a lotus position and began to meditate. Then he was greeted with the familiar surrounding of that beautiful meadow. When he turned his head, there he saw Hinako sitting amidst the flowers. However, Kyuubi seemed to be asleep as he leaned his back against the solid bark of the tree, which was a few feet away from where Hinako was. Then Hinako stood up, as well as Kyuubi, who was stretching his muscles after his nap. I see you have gotten enough information from the Sandaime Hokage and that you have taken your parents' scrolls. Naruto nodded, showing that he did indeed do so. Then it was the Kyuubi's turn to speak. So kid, you've been wondering what I'm going to be doing. Well, Hinako-sama here will teach you how to properly utilize your bloodlines, right? Naruto once again nodded, but gave a questioning glance when Kyuubi chuckled a bit. After he stopped laughing, he said, well, kid, let me explain something to you. You see, due to you being the former Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, well, your body absorbs some of my chakra. So because of this, you now have the ability to perform demonic abilities, let's say. Naruto looked at Kyuubi, then nodded thoughtfully. Well, because of this, I will be teaching you how to properly use these abilities for good use. But Kazunai, Naruto said hesitantly. Kyuubi smiled upon hearing the kid's name for him, as he remembered just how he received that nickname. Flashback. While Naruto slept, he thought of all those people who truly cared for him. Hanako ni, Hokage, those masked people, and Kyuubi. At this moment, he had unconsciously said, "Thank you Jiji for everything," without noticing it. However, in his mind, he immediately landed in his mindscape, which was now a beautiful meadow, and ran to Kyuubi who was against a tree, sleeping. Then Naruto, who was now openly crying, ran to Kyuubi and began to hug the sleeping figure. The sleeping figure immediately woke and was surprised what the kid was doing. "Thank, why you?" Naruto said, but sniffing as he said this. Then Kyuubi smiled, a genuine smile, and hugged the little boy back. "You're welcome little kid, don't worry." Then Naruto continued to cry and then Kyuubi finally spoke, "My name's Kazuki." Then Naruto smiled at Kazuki and then snuggled into his arms and muttered a faint "Kazunai." Flashback end. But, Kazunai, won't my mother's bloodline negate this? Actually there is no taint or difference. It's just like receiving more power. Oh okay, then Hinako ni. So is that a Kazunai? Naruto said, tilting his head to the side. Kazuki laughed and then shook his head, saying, "No, Naruto-kun. I will also train you in your endurance, agility, strength, speed, stamina, willpower, and in your control, though I doubt you'd need help for that." "What do you mean Kazunai?" Hanako then spoke, "Allow me to explain. You see Naruto-kun. Normally those with smaller chakra stores have easy control, while those with larger stores have little to no control. However, normally, angels adapt well and gain control of their energy faster than normal, and considering the fact that you're a celestial, getting full control over your nearly unlimited energy won't be too difficult. It will still take hard work though since just having full control would be cheating." "Then how do you recommend I train my control then Hinako ni?" "Well, both Kyuubi and I have different solutions, but we'll both help anyway." "I see. Can you explain more please?" "I will first give you the easy exercises in gaining control. The humans should know of these techniques: tree walking, water walking, and weapon balancing." "Weapon balancing? Tree walking?" Hanako then sighed before elaborating. "Tree walking is walking on the tree, using its bark as your own surface. You will be able to stick by placing energy on the soles of your feet just enough, then walking carefully up the tree. Too much and you will fall, but too little and you will also fall." Now weapon balancing is causing all types of weapons to float in the air above your hand, for example. Using your energy, push the weapon up from the palm of your hand like so. Then Hinako, who held a leaf at the palm of her hand, caused the leaf to float from its position on her palm. Naruto marveled at it and then smiled, waiting for Hinako to further explain. "I advise you to start with a small rock, then a kunai, then shuriken, and then senbon. I say it in this order because the smaller it is, the more difficult it will be to cause it to levitate." "I see." Then Naruto took a leaf and holding it at the palm of his hand, the leaf began to float slowly, not as high as Hinako had done, but nonetheless, he was still able to levitate it. Then smiling, Naruto exclaimed, "See. Look Hinako ni, Kazunai, I'm doing it." Hinako smiled, while Kyuubi just pat Naruto's head and then smiled, "You're getting it, just keep practicing, and soon enough it will be easy." "Now about my training, I want you to train your agility, speed, stealth, and stamina. Your strength will need to wait, though I will get to that soon enough. I want you to prank people." Naruto then sweat dropped and said, "Prank? Why?" "Well, it seems stupid, but setting up the prank will indeed increase your mind capacity, as well as help you in strategy and planning. Each prank requires creativity, which you will keep boosting as you continually prank people. As people try to chase you, you can improve your stealth, agility, speed, and stamina by seeing how long you can hide, how fast you can hide, and how much stamina you have to keep going on. And above all that, you're going to be having fun." Then Naruto smiled and began to think carefully. "I don't want to have an emotionless kid who does nothing but follow orders like a robot. We're building up your character and good judgment." Naruto nodded, "So I'll just prank people and do those control exercises that Hinako ni told me to do." "No, not just that, you see, there is a wise saying knowledge is power. I'm sure you understand completely what that means, right?" Naruto looked sort of unsure, but nodded nonetheless. "Simply we want you to read and study." Then Naruto fully understood and looked to Kazuki about something. "I need to learn how to read though. Actually, being a celestial allows you the ability of omnigualism, the ability to understand every language as well as being able to adapt. So I can read and write already?" "Well, not exactly since this ability has not yet fully awakened, but at its stage, you will be able to understand more clearly, so I would just need to teach you, but I wouldn't exactly have a very hard time." "Okay, and besides your human language, we will teach you the other languages." "Other languages?" "I will teach you the angelic tongue, Latin, and Kyuubi. I will teach you the demonic tongue, which is similar to the angelic tongue. Also because of the spirit bond that all celestial angels have, you will be able to speak to animals." "So animals are going to start talking to me?" Then Kazuki laughed at the concept of that, while Hinako just shook her head. No, not like that, it is not really understanding of their language, but like I said, it is more of a spirit bond, so you will be able to understand animals more clearly, and the same for them, though not all of them will speak to you. I see, so is that it? Actually kid, one more thing, when we said for you to read and study, we want you to read and study as much as you can, as much as I can. We are simply saying we wish for you to seek knowledge not just in one subject, but in all. From cooking, to human anatomy, history, human, demonic, and angelic herbs, sewing, fishing, art, strategies, psychology, medicine, mathematics, biology, animal science, prophecy, and so on. And if you complete your training well, I will make you a knowledge seeker. What's that? They are a type of angel, such as celestial and death angels, and are special angels called knowledge seekers. Their roles are to seek knowledge, both good and bad, and then archive it in the great library. If you gather enough knowledge, you may be allowed entrance there. Wow, that sound awesome. But how am I going to get all of that knowledge? Then both Hinako and Kyuubi smiled. We will teach you the Kage Bunshin, shadow clone. Back at the Hokage Tower, a certain old man sneezed while completing his paperwork. Curse you, Minato, you never told me how you beat this dreaded paperwork. The Kage Bunshin. That is a technique that allows you to create a clone of yourself, but it is not like any other bunshin. Normally you would not be able to perform this technique, but considering the fact that you extremely large chakra stores, you are more than able to do this technique, so we will teach you. Then Hinako whispered, Tyrannus Alacritas, temporary animation, and right before them an image of a person appeared. Now watch closely, Naruto-kun, I've created an illusion to show you how to do the Kage Bunshin. Naruto nodded, then watched in anticipation. The illusion was of a man who looked like a normal ninja. The illusion brought its hands together in a cross sign, then exclaimed, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Shadow clone technique. Then next to the illusion, smoke suddenly burst out, and when the smoke cleared, there was an exact copy of the man in the illusion. Big Zimo, release, said Hinako. Then the illusion faded away. So did you watch closely? Naruto nodded, and then copying what the man did, he put his hands together in a cross shape and then said, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Then there appeared 10 Narutos from the smoke. Kazuki and Hinako looked impressed, and Kazuki actually clapped. Very good kid. That technique is a jounin level technique, since it takes a huge amount of chakra to maintain. Now this technique holds with it many benefits. Kazuki, please demonstrate its benefits. Kazuki nodded, then signaled for one of the clones to follow him. Both of them walked behind the large tree that Kazuki was undoubtedly having a nap on earlier. From behind the tree, they could not be seen from Naruto's viewpoint, and after a few seconds, something exploded from behind the tree, leaving a trace of smoke. Kazuki then appeared back in his place, right in front of Naruto. Then Naruto suddenly jolted and pointed a finger at Kazuki. Why you hit me? Then suddenly he realized what he had just said and asked, how? That is one of the benefits of the Kage Bunshin. Once a clone is dispelled, the original person will gain all of that clone's knowledge. This technique is very useful if done properly and will help you in your knowledge seeking. So, I could just make some clones, get them to read books, dispel them, and then I'd get the knowledge. Yes. Yada. Naruto jumped in the air as Kazuki laughed and Hinako looked amused. After Naruto got back on the ground, Hinako spoke, however, you must be careful in using this technique, since dispelling all of your clones at the same time may prove to be too much for your mind to handle. So when dispelling clones, dispel them in groups of 3, so that your mind will not be overloaded, and so that you will not receive a migraine. Arigato, Hinako ni. Now listen kid, though the clones may help you in that area of expertise, you must build up your physique and stature alone. The clones only help with your mind, only through hard work will you be able to train physically. Hikazu nai. I will value hard work. Good. Now that all's in order, you can read those letters from your parents now. Naruto smiled and was about to leave when Hinako stopped him. Wait Naruto-kun, Hinako said, as she held his arm, remember to train physically, study hard, complete all those control exercises, and well, one more thing. Meditate. Meditation will help with your control, but I do not mean like ordinary meditation where you clear your mind, but just enter a state of peace and calm, and then just listen to the environment. This will help you greatly since this type of meditation can be practiced anywhere. Hinako then let go of his hand and smiled, be careful out there. And remember both Kazuki and I will be watching. Naruto nodded, smiled, then faded away. The kid will achieve great things no, Hinako-sama. Aye, it is true. Naruto opened his eyes and looked around. He then realized that he was back at the hidden place behind the Hokage mountain. He carefully stood up and putting his hands together in a familiar seal, said, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. At that, 35 clones appeared and then bowed to their original, who simply smiled and said, 10 of you please practice the tree walking exercise, another 10 of you practice the water walking exercise, another 10 practice leaf balancing, and the last 5 of you meditate. As he said this, he was pointing to the trees of the surrounding forest, to a lake just near the trees, and to a clearing which was full of leaves. The clones nodded, then began their tasks, while Naruto unsealed the scroll after placing his blood on the blood seal. Only one scroll came out, which was his father's scroll. Placing the smaller scroll back in his pocket, he opened a scroll entitled to him from his father by placing a blood seal and a spirit seal, by both placing his blood and then channeling some chakra into the spirit seal. To Naruto, "Hey Naruto. How are ya? You're probably Genin or something, right? Well, I'm sorry for placing this huge burden on you, but I could only trust you, my son. The Kyuubi no Kitsune was unfortunately sealed into you on the day of your birth, and my last wish was for you to be treated as a hero, but that wish was probably ignored. Anyway, since I haven't got long now, I'll just come straight out with it, you have a bloodline, two to be exact, one from me and one from your mother. I'm not exactly sure if you will activate both, but I will tell you anyway. You see, my bloodline is called the Voice of the Wind. However, I am not able to fully activate this bloodline, so instead I improvised by creating a technique called the Hurration, but that'll have to wait for now. This bloodline allows full control and manipulation of the wind. Well, it's almost time, so before I finish writing this, I've placed 3 scrolls within this scroll. One for our clan's techniques, which I know you'll be able to master, one for my Hurration technique, which I know you will improve, and lastly one for my other created technique, the Rasengan. However, this technique is not yet completed, but I know that you'll finish it too. Well, time's short and time's a waste, and so before I write goodbye, I want to say, I love you Naruto, your mother and I love you very much, and we want you to know that we believe in you. By the way, Jiraiya and Tsunade of the Sannin are your godparents, so I know that you are in safe hands. We love you son. Love, your father, Namikaze Minato. P.S. Reseal this scroll by saying Fu and I was a seal's master. As Naruto read the letter, he noticed that there were teardrops, and after reading all of it, he cried. Not in sadness, but in joy. They really did love me. Then after Naruto finished crying, he resealed the scroll into the originally small scroll and took out his mother's scroll. To Naruto, hello Naruto, this is your mother, Kushina Uzumaki. I'm writing this for you, knowing that you will receive it gladly. Unfortunately, I feel as if I'm going to pass soon. Right now while I write this letter, there you are in my stomach, only 7 months old. No one knows that I am writing this letter, not even your father himself, but I felt that it was wise that I write something to you in case I'm not there. If I'm there, then I guess I would be happy, but if not, then I guess you'd be crying. I'm sorry if I'm not there Naruto, but I know that whether or not I'm there, you'll be able to shine like the light you are. I also write this letter to tell you of something important, your bloodline, or 2 actually, considering the fact that your father also has one. My bloodline that I'm sure you will inherit is known as the heavenly gift of the angel. You see Naruto, the Uzumaki clan descended from real angels and well, I'm one too. This bloodlines gives you amazing abilities, but it all depends on what type of angel you are. You see, there are many different types of angels, but despite the differences, I was told that we lived in harmony. I am a death angel, but I'm not so sure about you. If you are, then congratulations. If you are not, I still say congratulations. Regardless. I've left in this scroll 4 scrolls. One about the Uzumaki clan history, one about the Uzumaki clan techniques, one from me about the techniques I've created, and lastly one with my weapon, Falx de Nex Angelus, the scythe of the Death Angel. This weapon of mine has been passed from generation to generation. The original holder was my great-grandfather, who was the head of the Death Angels. All information on this will be on the scroll. Now remember this, I will always love you. Love, your mother, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto once again smiled but did not cry. I must be strong for my parents. I will show the world their legacy. Then he confidently resealed his mother's scroll and took out the last one. To Naruto, this scroll will give you the basics, and in time if you are deemed ready, the scroll will change its instructions to more difficult ones. You see, this scroll is guarded by a guardian spirit, and to see this spirit, you must call upon him. If you are able to do so, then you are more than worthy of this scroll. We love you. Your mother and father, Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina. And so Naruto began with his training as he called upon the guardian spirit of the scroll. Hastadasili Cientia, Susatatio. Keeper of this knowledge, awaken. And break. That's it for now. Maybe more coming up, depends on the reviews. Well, anyway, was that long enough for you? Chapter 4. Disclaimer. I own nothing but the plot of this fanfic. Words, thoughts, an echo or angel speaking, Dazuki or Kyuubi speaking, I will be referring to both names. Recap. And so Naruto began with his training as he called upon the guardian spirit of the scroll. Hastadasili Cientia, Susatatio. Keeper of this knowledge, awaken. Recap end. Then there was a bright light and the scroll began to float in the air. Then when the light eventually faded away, there was the figure of a man. This man wore golden robes and had shoulder-length golden white hair, which was bound together as a ponytail. The golden robes resembled a kimono and he wore sandals. He was very handsome and his eyes held wisdom. After being summoned, he turned to Naruto and said, "Hello. I am the keeper of this knowledge. Have you summoned me? The Naruto, wanting to make a good impression, bowed, then spoke, Hi, I summoned you. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Then the keeper turned to Naruto and gasped, Naruto-sama. Then he bowed and said, I have heard the news, but you are the last celestial. Then Naruto, embarrassed, blushed, then scratched the back of his head, said, why yes Hinako-ni told me yesterday. Then the keeper stood up, took his hand, and said, let us go then we will come back later. Then Naruto just nodded and signaled the keeper to go on. The keeper then nodded and simply whispered, Transporto. Then both figures faded away. They both appeared in another beautiful meadow, but it was different from where Naruto usually met Hinako and Kazuki. It was still quite beautiful though. Then the keeper spoke, my name is Custos. I am a guardian angel. Then Naruto spoke, nice to meet you Custos, you probably know who I am, right? Hi, you are the last celestial on earth, Celestial Namek is Uzumaki Naruto. Why yes so, since I opened the scroll and called upon the keeper. Then Custos suddenly jolted and laughed, embarrassed, go Gomen, well, I'll be teaching you. Oh really? In what? Naruto said. Oh okay please calm down now you know about clones do you not? Ah. I forgot all about them. They're back at the clearing. Then why don't you dispel them now? Naruto nodded and then was about to dispel all of them, but then remembered, Hinako-ni said to dispel them in small groups. Then Naruto began to dispel them 3 by 3. He was amazed at the information, but at the same time, there was only a hint of pain with every 3 clones. So Hinako-sama has shown you the proper use of clones, that's good. And I'm also amazed at the way you're coping. Well, let me start teaching you now then. After Naruto dispelled all the clones, he stood still for a few seconds to adjust to the newfound information in his head. Then after fully absorbing all the information, he turned to Custos and nodded his head, I'm ready. I see now I want you make as much clones as you can without losing consciousness. Naruto nodded and forming the correct hand seal, he exclaimed, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Then smoke exploded around the area and when the smoke cleared, there were 70 clones. Custos was more than amazed, he clapped, amazing so many. Now I want 20 of those clones to do the tree walking exercise, another 20 for the water walking exercise, and another 20 for leaf balancing, and the last 10 will read these books. Then he pulled out books from behind his back and handed it to the clones. When they looked at the books, the topics were ranging from strategy and planning to the human anatomy. There was also one about the basics of chakra, seals, and spells. There was even one about Latin and another about cooking and herbs. Then the clones nodded after each receiving their different tasks and went off to begin their training, whether it be tree walking, water walking, leaf balancing, or just reading, each clone had something to do. Then Custos turned to Naruto and said, I will now teach you the basic 3 or what you ninjas call the 3 academy techniques. However, we are going to be doing them each differently. The first I will teach you is a technique equivalent to the Henge no Jutsu, but this is a more improved version. The Mutatio Ars. Volta Samovio. Transformation Arts. Shapeshift. That means shapeshift, right? Yes, it does. That's good. Your gift in omnigualism is getting better. And well, like the name, this technique is literally a transformation. This technique allows the user to transform either themselves or another object into the appearance of another person, animal, or object. A drawback with this technique is that it requires constant emission of energy while mentally maintaining the form. On top of that, the user would be, most likely, interacting with the environment. This puts much mental strain on an inexperienced user. So although it seems like a basic technique, it is more than that and if you continue to train in this technique, you will find out that this technique is very helpful. Naruto nodded, saying, so how do I perform it? Well, first, focus energy around your body and then think of the person, animal, or object that you wish to transform into. The same effect can also be achieved if you focus energy around an object, but for now, let's see you try it. Naruto nodded, then closed his eyes and concentrated. He felt his energy, but he needed it around him. So focus the energy around your body and then transform. Then Naruto spoke, Mutatio Ars. Volta Samovio. Transformation Arts. Shapeshift. Then Naruto slowly transformed into Custos. Custos watched, amused, then laughed. So, that's good. Now try and become other things. Naruto then began to transform into different things, such as rocks, trees, and other people. I see that you have completed it well. Now this is the next technique and it is similar to the Academy's body replacement technique. The Subpono Ars, substitution technique. This technique lets the user quickly switch places with another nearby object, such as a plant, normally a section of a log, an animal, or even another person within reach, the moment an attack hits. This creates an optical illusion, making the enemy think the attack was successful. The user can then use this confusion to escape or launch a counter-attack. Exploding tags can be attached to the replacement for an added surprise. Now to perform this technique, once again focus energy, but this time, focus the energy on a specific object, animal, or even person. and from then expel the energy in their replacement. Naruto nodded, showing his understanding, then followed Kusto's instruction. First, he focused energy on a nearby rock, then after gathering enough energy, expelled it, saying, Subponoars, substitution technique. Then from there, he and the rock disappeared in a cloud of smoke, and when the smoke cleared, both Naruto and the rock had swapped places. Naruto grinned, happy that he was once again able to perform the technique. Yada. I did it, again Kusto-san. Kusto smiled, then said, please just call me Kusto's Naruto. And well done. Once mastered, you will be able to replace yourself and even other people in the blink of an eye and on impulse. Now the last one. Professio de Sum Sindo, Art of Body Splitting. This technique creates intangible copies of the user. Normally the clones are simply illusions and will dissipate when they come into contact with something, and a person with normal eyes can distinguish the clones from the original. Since the clones will not disrupt the area around themselves with their movement, won't kick up dust, crush grass, etc. But these clones are different since they are made directly from your life energy. They are exactly like you, and as the name implies, it is as if your body split itself to form another lookalike. This clone has its own chakra system, but the amount of chakra they receive depends on the user. So you may put enough chakra to make them last a whole day, this I doubt you will have trouble with. So they are like the cage bunshin. Well, yes, since they also receive information, and when dispelled the original will receive all the information. If you truly master this, the clones will be able to have minds of their own, meaning they themselves are their own person and have a strong chance of survival. And also they will have at least half of your chakra in them, and you wouldn't lose a lot of chakra though since your energy source is near unlimited. With training, you will be able to reach that limit where your energy cannot be depleted. Well, to perform this technique, all you have to do is gather as much energy as you want the clone to have. Then picturing that clone, release the energy. Naruto nodded, then muttered, Professio de Sum Sindo, Art of Body Splitting. In that exact moment, 50 clones appeared. However, Naruto looked quite tired. It's okay Naruto. That alone is already a great start since you've already created 70. Now training is finished. We will meet again in 2 days, and during that time, I expect you to be practicing all that I've taught you. I also want you to continue reading and studying, keep the books, and when you're done just say, Reverto, return, and the books will come back to me. Then Naruto bowed and smiled, saying, thank you Kusto-sensei. I will practice and study as you've said. I'll make you really proud of me. Then Kusto smiled and walked up to Naruto, messed up his hair a bit, then said, I know you will. Then Kusto's began to fade away, but not before he said, and if you really have improved, I'll teach you more techniques. Sayonara Naruto-kun. And with that, Kusto's completely disappeared, and Naruto looked around seeing no one, began to practice. Time skip few hours later. After Naruto had finished training, he was quite exhausted and very happy at his improvement. He had fully mastered the transformation technique and could now perform the technique with just a simple 2 words, and in 2 seconds, he would have fully transformed or shapeshifted. He had also trained in transforming different objects and had been practicing transforming whole trees. His replacement technique had also improved. He had not yet mastered it, but he had definitely improved. He could now replace things quite fast and could instantly replace himself with a leaf. However, he still needed to say the words of the spell in order to perform the technique. He had already mastered his clone technique and could create clones without so much of a word. He could create at least 300 at maximum. They had proved useful since he would give them each different tasks and they would perform it obediently. His chakra control had also definitely improved. He could walk up trees and walk on water without even having to concentrate. Also, his leaf balancing had gone great, as well as his meditation, and usually he would practice both at the same time. First, he'd get into a meditating position, and then while closing his eyes, he would focus on causing each leaf near him to float. This helped in his chakra control and would help him in the future with ninjutsu, illusions, and with medical ninjutsu. He had exited the clearing by uttering a simple, Reverto. He had of course left home after dispelling all of his clones, in groups of 3. The information still amazed him and he walked home, content. As he opened the door to his apartment and then walked over to his bed, he thought of all of the things he would be able to do soon since his knowledge on those books he read had come back to him. Then he smiled and fell asleep. However, as he slept a voice could be heard, I will protect you my child. In Naruto's mind, Hinako was smiling, as well as Kazuki. He is doing well. Yes, I agree Hinako-sama. He will be very strong in the future. Yes, he will Kazuki. Now all we can do is help him and wait. Then Hinako disappeared, leaving Kazuki or the Kyuubi alone in Naruto's mindscape, which was now forest. Wow. Finished. Was that long enough? Chapter 5. Disclaimer. I do not own Naruto. Words, thoughts. Hinako or Angel speaking. Kyuubi or Kazuki speaking. The wind speaking. It was once again a bright day as one Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto woke up. As he woke, he noticed that around his apartment, birds began to sing and the sunlight shone brightly from his windowsill. He stood up blearily and then rubbed his eyes. Slowly getting up, he looked at his alarm clock and groaned, 6:30. Then after fully getting up, he walked slowly to the shower and began to strip. After that, he turned to the shower, with eyes still half closed, and turned on the cold water. At first, he jolted, but then got used to the feeling of the cold water on his skin. He slowly shampooed his hair and then covered his body with soap. Slowly rinsing, he repeated the cycle, then took his towel and began to dry himself. After getting out of the shower, he walked into his bedroom and looked at the mirror. He saw tan gold skin and golden yellow hair. He walked over to his wardrobe and thought, I better keep training. He took out of his wardrobe a blue shirt with a swirl on it and black shorts that reached down to his knees. He also took out a pair of shoes. Then after getting ready, he pocketed that small scroll from before and walked up to his door, thinking, I'd better go shopping. Naruto walked outside and went to the marketplace, where people seemed to start walking to, doing some morning shopping. However, as he walked, many glared, sneered, and some even spat. He could hear their whispers of demon. He never understood why they did that. He had never done anything to deserve that nickname. So shaking his head at the previous thoughts, he wandered into what looked like a clothes shop. Then he began to look around for anything to buy. As he was looking, the store owner immediately walked over to him and with a fake smile, said, do you have anything you like? Naruto, of course, immediately saw this. He had learned how to read people and had already seen through the fake smile, so deciding to copy the man, he also smiled a fake smile. However, his fake smiles were so good that only if you really knew Naruto then would you be able to distinguish between his fake and real smiles. No, I'm just looking around, sir. Naruto wanted to be polite, but as he said this, he saw the man grit his teeth, then gave that obviously fake smile and said, well, I got something that you might wanna see. Naruto, born curious, just nodded his head, but was still wary and watched the man carefully as the man walked away. He followed the man until they reached a rack with what looked like an orange jumpsuit. This is one of our best. Why not buy this? The man was obviously giving yet another fake smile. Naruto just thought, that jumpsuit's so ugly. I'm okay. I was just looking anyway. Then with that, Naruto turned to exit the shop, but not before hearing, the demon brat. He clenched his fists together, then just walked off, thinking, nobody will probably sell me anything. So then Naruto walked to an alley and slowly whispered, Voltus Amovio, shapeshift. As Naruto walked out of the alley, he no longer looked the same as before, but he now had brown spiky hair and wore the same clothes. He then went back to that same shop and began to look around. This time, however, the man from before didn't sneer or give fake smiles, but actually offered to help the boy. Naruto just shook his head and politely answered, and no, thank you. Then the man walked off, but not before giving a genuine smile. So the people here aren't necessarily evil. They just hate me. Then he found what he was looking for and walked to the counter. He took out Gama-chan from his pocket and handed the money to the cashier, who smiled gently. He instantly thanked her and then looked at his purchases. He had bought 3 shirts, black, red, and blue. He had also bought 3 pairs of pants. And finally, he had bought himself some socks and underwear. Then he carried his bags and walked out of the shop, but as he walked away, he heard, thank you. Please come again. He just smiled as he walked out of the shop. Then he went back to an alley and a second later, 2 clones slowly appeared into existence. Then Naruto said, please bring these bags back to the apartment. Then turning to the other clone, he said, and you, follow me. The clone slowly nodded and both clones shapeshifted into different looking boys. One took the bags from the original, then began to run to the apartment, while the other followed the original as he walked out of the alley and toward a grocery store. Once inside, Naruto began to look for some food to buy, and the clone did the same. After finding what he wanted to buy, he double-checked each and every item. Eggs, check. Milk, check. Bread, check. Ramen, check. Bananas, check. Bacon, check. That's good. I got everything. Then after double-checking, he went to the cashier, then paid for the items, and once outside the shop, he spoke to the clone, sighing, here, please bring these stuff to the apartment. Then clean up the apartment. After saying that, the clone nodded, then after taking the bags from the original, he nodded, then went to complete his task. Naruto then walked to the clearing where he trained from the day before. After getting there, he whispered, Professio de Sum Sindo, art of body splitting. Then 70 clones faded into existence. He smiled at them, then spoke, 20 of you please practice the tree walking exercise, another 20 please practice the water walking exercise, and then another 20 please practice the meditation and leaf balancing. And the last 10 of you go to the library, but shapeshift first and then please read about something, anything that seems easy. Start with the basics of chakra and the basics of cooking or something. And with each clone having their own task, they each proceeded to complete their tasks. He then wandered into a secluded place, a place that only he knew since he occasionally wandered around the area anyway. It was a small meadow inside of a cave. Only Naruto could enter since the entrance was very small. Inside there was grass and a small stream. Sunlight came from various gaps in the cave's ceiling. The wind flowed freely inside also, and Naruto felt the wind's caress cover him. He had never before felt so peaceful. And sitting down on the grass, he took out the small scroll in his pocket and once again took out his father's scroll. Opening the scroll, he put some blood on the blood seal that was hidden inside the scroll. He took out the scroll that his father had said held the Namikaze clan's techniques. "I'll make my parents proud." Then with that thought in mind, he opened the scroll and saw the beginning of the scroll. This is the ancient scroll of the Namikaze. Only those worthy may be able to read the secrets of this scroll. If this scroll finds the reader worthy, he or she must place a drop of blood below. Then below those words was a large circle. "Guess that's where I put my blood." Then he continued to read. "With your blood, the scroll will assess the reader's skill level. Then using the knowledge gained, the scroll will show the reader what he or she may be able to learn." Then with that, he pricked his finger, then placed a drop onto the blood seal. The scroll glowed a bit, then words began to form on the scroll. To the reader of this scroll, Celestial Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. Then Naruto continued to read and noticed that there was at least one technique. That's a good start. Then Naruto began to read carefully. The voice of the wind allows the user to hear and communicate with the wind. This forms a somewhat spiritual bond. The wind will be able to help and even save the user. Also, the user must be sure to listen to the wind's wise words. As the user grows, his or her bond with the wind also grows. The first exercise would be to just be still and to listen to the voice of the wind. Naruto understood this, then sat down in a meditative position and closed his eyes. At first there was nothing, but then after Naruto calmed down, he could hear it. "I am the voice of the wind. You must be a Namikaze child." Then Naruto smiled and spoke. "Why yes, my name is Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. I see, I accept you with this gift. Well, I will continue to watch you, child." Naruto smiled, then got up and began to continue to read from the scroll. "After hearing the voice of the wind and having the wind accept you, you can now practice some techniques. Normally wind techniques can be used by anyone with a wind affinity, but with this gift, the voice of the wind, the techniques are far more effective and dangerous. There is also no need for hand signs. The blade of wind. This technique is a pinpoint slashing strike where the user emits chakra from their fingertips and materializes it into an invisible sword that assaults the enemy in a gust of wind and making a slicing sound. This technique is an uncatchable, unavoidable longsword. It leaves very deep slashes on the enemy. Naruto paused and then began to practice the use of performing the technique. At first nothing came out, but then he remembered the words of the scroll. "So gather some energy at my fingertips, then materialize it into an invisible sword." And after doing so, he said, "Blade of wind." Then a long blade of wind materialized from his fingertips and shot out to the tree. The tree fell, as if cut down by an invisible axe. Naruto smiled. "Oh, this is definitely useful." Once the user is able to perform this technique with his or her fingertips, continue to practice until the user is able to create these slashes from the palms of his hand or even his feet. Naruto marveled at that. "From my feet." Then he looked on to the next technique. Wind release. Great breakthrough. This is a relatively simple technique that creates a sudden gust of wind, but its scale varies greatly depending on the user. If used by a superior shinobi, it has enough destructive power to knock down a large tree. The wind from the squall can blow away all things in the user's line of sight. A variation of the technique involves a smaller blast of wind which gets ignited with flame. So Naruto began to practice this technique also, but unfortunately, he could only create a small gust. I'll practice it later. Now on to the last technique. Wind release. Body flicker. This jutsu is a high-speed movement technique, allowing a ninja to move short to long distances at an almost untraceable speed. To an observer, it appears as if the user has teleported. It is accomplished by using chakra to temporarily vitalize the body and move at extreme speeds. The amount of chakra required depends on the overall distance and elevation between the user and their intended destination. Naruto actually understood this and he imagined a location which was a few feet away and then he body flickered. However, there was no smoke, but instead, the wind formed a small gust. Naruto smiled, then resealed the scroll and took out his mother's scroll, but before that he created 3 clones and told them to practice the new techniques. He slowly opened the scroll with his clan's history when a small note appeared. Relatively curious, he read the note, which said Aperio. Then 2 figures slowly faded into existence right in front of him and the wind began to swirl around the figures. When the wind stopped, Naruto saw the 2 figures. He noticed that one of the figures was Hinako Ni, while the other was a red-haired beautiful woman who wore a pink robe. She seemed to smile at Naruto and then Hinako spoke. "Naruto-kun, this is your mother, Kushina Uzumaki." In the library, the Naruto clones, with their shape-shifted forms of course, were reading. They were all intrigued at all the books, and each one began to read in on some books. One clone began to read a book about cooking, while another took one about herbs. The others, however, began to read about the human anatomy, the basics of chakra, and strategy. However, one clone wasn't looking and accidentally bumped into a pink-haired little girl. Slowly getting up, he spoke a single word as he nursed the bump on his head. Sorry. Then, not wanting to be rude, he offered the girl his hand. The girl blushed in return, but took the offered hand nonetheless. After both getting up, he once again apologized. I am sorry, I wasn't looking and I. Then the girl interrupted him, saying, oh, it's fine. And my name's Sakura. Then the boy smiled in return and was about to say his name when he thought, oh, no one knows I'm Naruto, I'll just have to lie. My name's Rikuya, that's it, Riku. Then he smiled again. The girl just blushed again in return and then spoke, nice to meet you Riku-kun, what are you doing here? The boy just blushed a bit at the kun suffix, but answered back, I'm looking for a good book to read. What type of book? Anything interesting, I guess. Then the girl looked to be in thought for a bit, then suddenly grabbed his hand and smiled, I know. Follow me. He didn't really have a choice since she just grabbed a hold of his hand and dragged him away. Back to the real Naruto. What? Naruto said, unsure of what to say. However, his mother had other plans and immediately hugged him. He, though, had sort of gone into a panic attack. Mother. She then began to hug him tightly, but not so tight that he wouldn't be able to breathe. Naruto had now already gathered his thoughts and began to cry. Mom, and with that, Kushina just held him even tighter and began to rub his back and spoke sweet nothings to his ear. Inako was smiling at the scene and allowed them to have their moment. And after a few minutes passed, the mother and son slowly detached from each other. However, Naruto still held onto his mother's hand like a lifeline. So now, the truth. Back at the library again, Sakura had dragged the clone Naruto to a section of books entitled Konoha's Heroes. She then took out a book, but still held onto Naruto's hand. When she took the book, he slowly asked, so, are you gonna let go now? Sakura hadn't realized that she was holding his hand, and after realizing that, she let go, then blushed. Naruto, however, didn't understand and tilted his head a bit and said, are you sick? Sakura then shook her head vigorously and then remembering what she was about to do, she took hold of the book that she grabbed and then told Naruto, so, Riku-kun, look at this. Riku blushed again at the kun suffix and then looked at what the pink-haired girl was pointing at and noticed a picture, which he could read. It said, the legendary Sannin. However, Sakura was pointing to a certain figure, which Naruto now noticed and asked, who's that? Sakura gasped and then said, why you don't know Tsunade-sama? Naruto then thought, but never having heard that name before, said, and no, but before Naruto could go on, Sakura interrupted him and began to talk about Tsunade. Naruto rubbed his eyes with his free hand and then looked at Hinako with a confused look. What truth? Allow your mother to explain. Then Naruto looked to his mother, who had also just finished rubbing away her tears. Kushina then spoke, Naru-chan, I see that you know who I am, and let me tell you again. I am your mother, Kushina Uzumaki. It may seem that you are too young to be hearing this, but I know that you are more than ready. You see, like I wrote in the letter, I am an angel. A death angel to be more precise. And well, I was a kunoichi of Konohagakure, the village hidden amongst the leaves, but I originated from Yuzashigakure, the village hidden among the whirling tides, but before that I was once known as the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Chapter 6. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto. Words, thoughts, Inako or an angel speaking, Kyuubi or Kazuki speaking, the wind speaking, recap. I am your mother, Kushina Uzumaki. It may seem that you are too young to be hearing this, but I know that you are more than ready. You see, like I wrote in the letter, I am an angel. A death angel to be more precise. And well, I was a kunoichi of Konohagakure, the village hidden amongst the leaves, but I originated from Yuzashigakure, the village hidden among the whirling tides, but before that I was once known as the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Recap end. What? Naruto said, confused. You see, before the destruction of Yuzashigakure, the elders had sent me to Konoha to become the new Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. They did this because I possessed a very strong chakra, as well as great willpower. The previous Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi was Amito Uzumaki, who was a distant relative of mine. She was the wife of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, and using the abilities of our bloodline, she sealed the Kyuubi no Kitsune into her. She used a Genjutsu technique that she created. At first I was completely terrified. Terrified at becoming the second Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, but Mito had helped to comfort me and told me that only love could tame the Nine Tails hatred. Mito-sen was an amazing kunoichi, and very wise also. Tsunade was her granddaughter. Well, after the Kyuubi was sealed into me, I soon learned to adapt and then I returned to Yuzashigakure. But due to the popularity of the village, it was destroyed. You see, the people of Yuzashiogakur were noted to have notoriously long lives, so it gained the title the Village of Longevity, and also its ninja were renowned for their genjutsu to the point that it led to its destruction in war, but a few were able to survive, and then we, the survivors, moved to Konoha where we were welcomed. Yuzashiogakur had close ties with Konohagakure due to Yuzashio's Uzumaki clan and Konoha's Senju clan being distant relatives. Because of this, all Chunin and Junin vests of Konoha shinobi bear the crest of Yuzashiogakur, symbolizing the strong friendship that resided between both villages. I resided in Konoha where I met your father, and at first, I had thought of him as a wimp and had even called him flaky and even girly, but through the years he proved himself to be a strong individual, and one day when I was kidnapped by Kumo shinobi, due to my strong chakra, I cleverly plucked and left behind single strands of my red hair in hope that someone would find me. Out of all the other shinobi, only your father proved clever enough to pick on the clues and was able to rescue me. Afterwards, he complimented me on my hair, calling it beautiful, and that was the reason he noticed them. I was taken aback by someone actually complimenting my unusual hair, which I had always hated, and I immediately loved Minato and came to love my hair as it was what led Minato to notice me. However, as we were traveling, Uchiha Madara suddenly appeared and attacked us. He began to fight with your father, but your father was still weakened from his previous fight and had unfortunately lost. Madara kidnapped me and demanded that I give him the Kyuubi. However, I refused, but I too was weakened, and it was then that I noticed that the seal containing the Kyuubi was weakening. I fell into a state of unconsciousness, but during this time was when Madara had forcefully removed the Kyuubi. It was thanks to my strong chakra and clan's longevity that I was able to survive the extraction process, but I was barely left alive. When I woke, Madara was attempting to control the Kyuubi, but then, Naruto, who had been listening intently, asked, "Then what?" This time, Hinako spoke, "I came. I immediately removed Kyuubi from that Uchiha's grasp. Then I sent Madara away and took away his memories of me. I let the Kyuubi go after cleansing him of his hatred, and he left, and you know the rest of his story." At this, Naruto nodded, remembering the words of the nine-tailed fox. Then Hinako continued, "Then I healed your mother, and soon your father came back and rescued her. Your mother eventually became renowned for her beauty and unique ninjutsu style, including the genjutsu of her clan. At some point, your mother married your father and they conceived a son. During her pregnancy, they decided to name you Naruto after the main character of Jiraiya's first book. When Jiraiya asked if they were sure, stating that it was a name he came up with while eating a bowl of ramen, your mother said that it was a beautiful name. She also became friends with Makoto Uchiha, who expressed that their sons, Naruto and Sasuke, would become friends in the future when your mother told Makoto of Naruto's soon-to-be birth. Then after Hinako spoke, Kushina began to speak. "Yes, Makoto was one of my best friends. After she heard that I was pregnant, she was ecstatic since she also was pregnant." Hinako then began to speak. "It was soon the day of your birth, and though the Kyuubi was no longer sealed inside your mother, traces of its power still lay in the seal, and your mother needed to keep this power away from evil hands. Prior to your birth, your mother and father knew that the seal that kept the nine tails' remaining power within her would weaken during childbirth, so they set up a plan to prevent that from ever happening. Your mother was taken a short distance outside of the village to give birth in secret with Bawako Sarutobi, who was your Jiji's wife, third Hokage's wife, and Taji, a medic nin, as her midwives, a few Anbu as security, and with your father keeping the seal in place. Their location was eventually tracked by Madara Uchiha, killing the Anbu, Bawako and Taji, as well as holding the newborn Naruto hostage. Madara, however, did not know that the Kyuubi was no longer sealed inside your mother. Then Madara ordered your father to step away from your mother lest he kill you, a newborn. While your father was able to save you and remove the exploding tags rigged on your body, he was forced to teleport with you away back to their home, allowing Madara to run off with your mother. After finding out that the nine tails no longer was sealed inside your mother, Madara went into a rage and instead took the remaining power of the Kyuubi and was about to try to destroy Konoha. Again, thanks to her strong chakra and clan's longevity, Kushina was able to survive the extraction process, barely left alive. Before Madara could finish your mother, your father teleported in time to save her and bring her back to their newborn son. Afraid for the worst, your mother was happy to see her son safe from harm and then wished your father good luck as he headed off to stop Madara. However, I had once again come and defeated Madara Uchiha and did the same as before. I took away his memories and left him in water country. The Kyuubi then suddenly came right after Madara's exit and began to attack and destroy all he could see. However, I could not interfere as I had already done so. It was then that your mother died in the process of resealing the nine tails into you as she gave her chakra, together with your father's, as failsafes to the four symbols seal. This is why the third Hokage gave to you, Naruto, Uzumaki as your surname, in hopes that nobody else would discover the connection between you and your father. Naruto was wide-eyed and felt a mix of emotions. He was sad that his parents died. He was angry that Madara Uchiha had caused all of the problems in his family. He was happy that his mother had been the one to say this to him, despite his mother being dead. However, he was confused why his mother was friends with an Uchiha. Then Kushina hugged him again and said, "It doesn't matter now, I'll always be with you." Naruto, not wanting to cry, felt the tears build up and just rubbed them off as he hugged his mother. So this is what a mother's hug feels like. Then Kushina began to speak once again. "You see, the Nine Tails was in a rage, and seeing that there was no power to destroy him, your father and I formulated a plan. When the Nine Tails tried to fire another blast of chakra, Minato teleported himself and the Nine Tails away from the village, letting the blast detonate with no one hurt. He met up with me, and I then held down the Nine Tails with my chakra. After hearing my plan to take the Nine Tails to the grave with me, if only to buy them time before it revives, Minato made a plan of his own. Having understood what a threat Madara still was to the village and the threat of the Nine Tails revival without a host, Minato decided to give me and him a chance to see you again and give Konoha the means to combat Madara if he should ever attack the village again. He used the dead demon consuming seal to seal the Nine Tails into your body, hoping that you, our son, would someday be able to use its power. When Minato sealed the Nine Tails within you, he split its chakra in two, the yin and yang. Minato sealed the yang half within you with the 8 trigram sealing style, which used my chakra, and sealed the yin half with the dead demon consuming seal into himself, thus making it inaccessible to Naruto. The act cost Minato his life, and he died as the village's greatest hero, as did I." Naruto now began to openly cry. "Why you sniff, why you are real, I love Ed sniff me." Kushina smiled and still hugging her son, she said, "Of course I do, your father, and I love you more than anything in the world, and you should know that." Then Naruto said, "So will you stay with me now?" Kushina suddenly had a sad look but still smiled to Naruto. "Unfortunately, my time is not yet, but soon we will be together." Then Naruto nodded, understanding of what she said, "P promise." This time Kushina smiled genuinely and kissing her baby's forehead, she said, "Promise." Then this time Kushina suddenly had an angry face, "But if I see anyone, and I mean anyone, hurting you, Naru-chan, I will come and just take you." Then Kushina suddenly adopted a gentle expression and said, "And anyway, it is soon time to when I shall see you again." This time Hinako spoke, "I'm afraid, it is time to go." Naruto pouted, but was still understanding, "Really? Now?" Then Kushina spoke, "Sorry, Naru-chan got to go." Naruto just nodded sadly, but then was hugged by both Hinako and his mother. Then they let go and silently said, "Remember that your dad and I love you. Be strong, Naruto-kun, we will always be watching." Then they faded out of existence and Naruto rubbed his eyes from the tears and then with a determined look, said, "I have to train." Then he remembered the scroll that held the Uzumaki clan history, but noticed that it was all blank, but for a few words. "Soon, Naruto, soon, you will know. For now, just train hard and do your best. I love you. Your mother, Kushina Uzumaki. P.S. I expect you to be brushing your teeth every day." Then Naruto blushed, embarrassed that his mom would even put that. Then setting his eyes hard, he began to train physically. "I will make you proud, Dadabeo." Back at the library, the clone Naruto, who had gotten tired of Sakura's rants about Tsunade-sama, said, "I'm sorry, but I have to go now." Sakura, obviously saddened at the departure of her friend, said, "Will I see you again?" Then the clone Naruto smiled and stood up from his seat and said, "Of course you will." Then he stood up to leave and walking towards the exit, he had actually whispered to Sakura as he passed her, "My real name's Naruto, and I don't really look like this. I trust you to keep my secret, Sakura-chan." And with that, he left, but not before smiling to Sakura at Sakura-chan, and then leaving. Time skip hours later, Naruto was exhausted and dead tired. He had trained very hard and besides being tired physically, he was having a headache at the sudden overload when he accidentally dispelled 10 clones at the same time. Nevertheless, he was able to walk limp to his apartment and after laying down on his bed, closed his eyes and soon fell into a blissful sleep. The next day, it was once again a bright morning, though not as bright as the day before. Naruto then stood up and getting ready for training, he couldn't help but think, "Only today then Kusto-sensei will check what I've done. I've worked hard and I know I'll make everyone proud." Mom, Dad, Jiji, Hinako-ni, Kazunai, Kusto-sensei, Weasel-san, and Snake-san. As he exited the apartment after eating a healthy and nutritious breakfast, he couldn't wait to try out his new trick. This new trick was something he developed after dispelling the clones who were practicing the shapeshifting technique. He had somewhat created a special variation of it that instead of shapeshifting, he would become invisible. This new trick of his could not have been developed just like that. Using his father's bloodline and his mother's bloodline also, he shapeshifted into air. However, normally the shapeshift would just be an illusion. He had mastered it to a level where it was no longer an illusion, but it was real. This meant that he could get hurt and his shapeshift wouldn't cancel out. Also, using his father's bloodline, he was able to picture air and combining both, he had created a new technique. He could now become air itself. He calmed himself and then whispered, elementum mutatio, air, elemental transformation. Air. Then he slowly converted himself into air. Pure air. It was genius. Then he floated to the hidden clearing and after scouting the area for anyone, he silently muttered, Recoligo quod estendo sum, gather and return. Then he slowly reverted back to solidity. After doing so, he began to train. He once again sent clones to the library, but increased their number, so now, 20 clones were going to the library, shapeshifted of course. He then instructed 60 clones to continue his training in control and meditation. Time skip again hours later. Naruto was proud that he had trained successfully and proud that he was doing this for his precious people. Now it was time for Naruto to rest. Naruto laid down on his bed and slept, but not before switching the time on his alarm clock to 8 o'clock. He did deserve rest and he was a growing boy. I can't wait to show Kusto-sensei what I've done. This was his last thought before he fell into a gentle sleep with the wind gently caressing him. Naruto woke up at the exact time as his alarm clock had began to ring. Turning of the annoying thing, he slowly stood up and stretched a bit, then made his bed. After making his bed, he turned to go brush his teeth, then take a shower. After taking a shower, he had a healthy breakfast, which contained some toast, a few scrambled eggs, a bowl of cereal, a glass of water, and 2 bananas. Then after brushing his teeth again, he looked at his wardrobe and smiled at the new clothes that he had managed to buy for himself. Flashback. Clone Naruto had just finished his rounds at the library and was about to go to his original when he saw a certain shop, Higurashi's shinobi store. Intrigued, the clone Naruto decided to walk inside. As he walked past the door, the bell from the door jingled, signaling to the owner that there was a customer. Albeit a few seconds later, an old man came from around the corner and spoke, in a friendly manner, welcome, welcome. Then he spoke again, so anything you might want. Naruto nodded and said, well. Then Naruto proceeded to tell the old man exactly what he needed, but of course in his shapeshifted form. He no longer looked like a 5-year-old, but actually 12. Then the old man spoke, so, I think we already have those supplies here. Naruto nodded and smiled, happy that he would not need to wait. Then the man walked away and signaled to the clone Naruto to follow him. You don't need to hide yourself, you know. Naruto was shocked and stuttered, how? The old man just smiled, I know it's you Naruto, your father would do the same sometimes. Naruto just gaped at him. He knew my father. Then Naruto sighed and just released his shapeshifted form, Eximo. Release. Then Naruto slowly shifted back to his original form and said, I'm just a clone my creator is training. Now it was the old man's turn to gape. What you're so young. Then Naruto chuckled, yes so. Then the man slowly reverted back to his original posture and shook off the bewildered expression on his face. He smiled and said, let's get your measurements then, shall we? The old man also held out his hand to the little boy. Then Naruto, looking at the offered hand, placed his hand on the old man's and then nodded. After finishing up, Naruto smiled and looked at what he was able to buy. With the old man's help, he had managed to get a hooded cloak that fitted him just right and covered his whole body. Despite its long fabric, it was made so that it would not hinder the wearer, but would provide mobility. So it looked as if it would hinder the wearer's mobility and speed, but it was made to do just the opposite. Besides the cloak, the old man had provided fingerless gloves, shinobi sandals, shorts that stopped just mid-knee, and a shirt with sleeves that stopped right at the elbow. The cloak was black color, designed for stealth purposes. The fingerless gloves, shinobi snadles, shorts and shirt were also black. After paying the correct amount, the clone Naruto smiled and said, thanks Oji-san. The old man just smiled in return, then ruffled the little boy's hair affectionately and said, just be sure to tell your friends to buy Hiragaki. The boy just nodded and taking the bags which held the clothes, he walked out of the shop and spoke a final arigato. Then he ran to his apartment, holding on to the bags carefully. Flashback end. Naruto put on his new clothes, then body flickered to the clearing. The only evidence of his departure was the small gust of wind that blew over his previous position. Naruto appeared in the clearing and once again spoke the words, Aperio, appear. Then Custos once again appeared in a bright light and said, are you ready? That's it for now. Chapter 7. Words spoken, thoughts. An echo or an angel speaking. Ayubi or Kazuki speaking. The wind speaking. Naruto had just finished training with Custos sensei, and after Custos' evaluation, Custos was more than pleased with his student's latest accomplishments. His physical training had gone great. His stamina, strength and endurance, as well as speed and stealth, had improved greatly. He still had to work with them, but they had improved anyway. He was still 5 years old. The clones that he had sent to the library had helped him greatly with his search for knowledge, and he realized that he had made a new friend after one clone dispelled with the knowledge of said friend. He was currently studying strategy and planning, botany or plant science, the human anatomy and medicine. He was also currently learning the basics of cooking, and this was a skill that he definitely wanted to learn. Overall, his knowledge on different subjects had also improved, but he had much more to learn. After hearing this, Custos was once again very proud of Naruto and then asked Naruto to demonstrate the techniques that Custos himself taught to Naruto. Naruto of course obliged and began to demonstrate. He first demonstrated the first technique, the mutatio ars. Voltisum ovio, transformation arts. Shapeshift. He had fully mastered this technique and had shown and explained to Custos what he thought to be the technique's full potential. Naruto no longer needed to utter a word or anything like that, but he would simply transform with just a thought. The transformation did not produce smoke or make any loud noises or distractions, but instead Naruto's whole body shifted as if it were an illusion. Then a second after, there it was, transformation. The technique had truly become its namesake and was no longer a pathetic illusion, but a full-fledged transformation. Naruto's body mass would be reformed and would then shapeshift into whatever Naruto had wanted to become, be it man, woman, animal, or object. However, he did not gain their memories or their abilities, just their appearance, body, and voice, if it had a voice. Because it was not an illusion, Naruto could get hurt but still be in his shapeshifted form. He could also have the same effect on other people, animals, plants, or objects. And he could do that with just a thought and in a second. Next, he demonstrated the second technique, the subpono ars, substitution technique. He had not yet fully mastered this technique, but could use the technique quite effectively. He could substitute with just a word and in a second's time. He could substitute almost anything, trees, logs, animals, different objects, and even people. However, he could only substitute people and some rather large animals in a mile's radius from his position. He could obviously not substitute himself with a building or something far bigger than a building. The pressure would be too much and the strain would immediately cause energy stores to drain, causing instant death by energy loss. He had somehow modified the substitution technique by changing the ordinary small smoke explosion when performing the technique. He found out that this small explosion of smoke was like throwing a mini smoke bomb. This was a norm in the technique as it helps to fool the opponent by creating an optical illusion, making the enemy think the attack was successful. The user can then use this confusion to escape or launch a counter-attack. However, Naruto's modification changed the normal smoke bomb explosion, and besides a normal smoke bomb, he could now create a much larger smoke bomb explosion, resulting in adding more confusion. Besides smoke bombs, he could also change the explosion to that of a stink bombs, sleeping gas bombs, and poison gas bombs. However, he had to make the materials himself. This is one of the reasons why he studied botany or plant life, so he could create different concoctions and potions. True mastery of this technique was when the substitution could be performed with an object, person, or animal in at least a 10-mile distance, Custos had said to Naruto. He still praised Naruto regardless and had said that with devoted practice, Naruto would master it quickly. After demonstrating and explaining the substitution technique, Naruto then demonstrated the last technique he had learned from Custos, the Professio de Sum Sindo, art of body splitting. Like the mutatio ars. Voltisum ovio, transformation arts. Shapeshift, Naruto had also mastered this technique and could use the technique to the fullest. He could summon at least 1,000 perfect clones without falling into unconsciousness. Naruto realized that he could summon more because of his stamina and large energy reserves. Naruto had then realized that in the future, he could create thousands upon thousands and then not feel the loss of energy. His clones were very strong and were very different from the normal Kage Bunshin. The Kage Bunshin would dissipate immediately after one hit and could probably take more hits if given enough chakra. However, Kage Bunshin are Kage Bunshin. Shadow clones, they do not have minds of their own and they also have a low chance of survival. The body splitting technique, however, was amazing. Instead of being dispelled immediately, they can take hits and will only dissipate when dealt with a fatal blow, such as a strike to the heart, decapitation, or a strike to the brain. They did not have regenerating abilities as their original has, since the Kyuubi is only sealed in the original Naruto. These clones also have a mind of their own. However, these minds are no different from their original. It is more like a case of there being two Narutos. The clones and the original are the same, but have different mindsets. This helps with their survival as they do not have to completely rely on their original, since they can make plans of their own. The clones could not revolt against Naruto since they were in fact still him. Naruto had demonstrated his mastery over the technique by being able to perform the technique in a second, by being able to create a clone without any noise or distraction, but most importantly by using the clones to their full potential. He could perform the technique in a second with just a simple thought. Usually, when one creates a clone, there is some form of a small explosion, such as a small smoke explosion when using the Kage Bunshin, but when using the body slipping technique, there is no sudden explosion of smoke or any kind. Instead the clones somehow fade into reality, making them the best clones. Custos was once again impressed at Naruto's determination and commitment and praised Naruto graciously. However, Custos spoke to Naruto of the true level of mastery over the technique. This level could only be achieved to constant use of the technique, as well as physical and mental training. Custos explained that at this level of mastery, the user of the technique would be able to somehow tap into the clone senses, meaning the original could see through the eyes of each and every clone. The mechanisms were complicated, but it was like that. Not only the eyesight of his clones, but also their hearing, smelling, and sixth sense, which was a sort of warning sense. The good thing about these techniques was that it was only Naruto or a magic-using angel who could perform these techniques, so Naruto did not have to fear about anyone taking his techniques. After congratulating Naruto, Custos asked Naruto to show him any other things that Naruto had learned. Naruto once again did so and demonstrated to Custos the wind techniques that he had taught himself from his father's side's clan scroll. He demonstrated the blade of wind release, great breakthrough, and wind-style body flicker. He could perform the blade of wind technique without having to use hand signs. His blade of wind was quite strong and could break through 2 thick trees. Naruto could create the blade from his fingertips, from the palm of his hands, but not his feet. Not yet anyway. His great breakthrough had definitely improved and he could now create a strong gust that could blow away an unsuspecting ninja. Though strong, Naruto was far from mastering the technique and was still training heavily. He still needed to use the hand signs in order to perform the technique. He could perform the wind-style shunshin flawlessly. He no longer needed hand signs and could body flicker in less than 2 seconds. His performing distance was a 5-mile radius, but increasing. Naruto also told him of his other bloodline, the voice of the wind, and his constant practice in using the bloodline. Custos, very pleased at his student, taught Naruto 3 new techniques and explained to Naruto the basics and uses of the said techniques. After that, Custos asked Naruto if the chakra exercises were helpful and Naruto, being Naruto, said that they were. However, he told Custos that he had already mastered all 3 exercises, from the water walking to leaf balancing and the tree walking. Custos just agreed and gave Naruto another exercise to practice and eventually master. Custos taught him the leaf concentration exercise, which was similar to the leaf balancing. This exercise was taught in the academy to teach students how to control their chakra more effectively. However, the true purpose of the exercise was actually to hone the individual's concentration and to keep their mind from becoming distracted. The training method is done by placing a leaf over an individual's forehead and having them direct all their chakra onto the leaf, using it as a focal point. Naruto took the training to heart and when Custos finished teaching Naruto and left, Naruto began to train. Now he was finished for the day and it was already quite late. As Naruto walked outside, he noticed that there was a full moon. There were also little to no people around. Naruto walked around the corner but then suddenly saw a figure running. Who's that and why's there a bag over? He's a kidnapper. Then Naruto began to run to the man and while he ran, he also spoke in whispered tones, Misero, weaken, and then the man suddenly hunched down in pain and dropped the bag he was carrying. Naruto quickly ran to the bag and opened it, seeing a small girl, around his age. He quickly ushered her out and she ran to go behind him. DT then NK, why you? Naruto nodded in return and was about to run away when he heard the kidnapper speak, TTSK, you'd better give me the girl brat, or I'll kill you. Then Naruto suddenly remembered his lesson with Custos. Flashback. Custos began to teach Naruto the first technique for the day, Misero, weaken. Custos first demonstrated the technique to Naruto before explaining the technique. Custos summoned a human-looking figure, which he had said he would use as a training dummy. Custos then said, Misero, weaken, and then the figure suddenly hunched in pain and then seemingly disappeared. This technique allows the user to weaken an opponent using willpower alone. It is similar to killing intent but is far more effective. To perform this technique, you must use your will and emotions and then gather energy from them, then release. The result should be instantaneous and should be as I have shown you, but it all depends on your opponent. This technique might work, but only for a few seconds if the opponent uses his own will to overpower yours. Therefore, this technique will only work if the opponent is weak-willed or if the user is very strong-willed. To be able to sustain the attack, the user must stay within close proximity of the victim, otherwise the attack will weaken in strength. However, usually a strong burst of willpower will usually be enough and the victim will be weakened for a short while and then the user can use this as a distraction and then escape. Usually, this technique will always work when some certain emotions intensify, such as anger, rage, or another strong emotion. However, this technique will also work without those emotions, but just a strong will. Naruto nodded and began to train. Flashback end. Naruto cringed, remembering that little detail about willpower. I'm only 5 years old. Despite this, Naruto tried again, but this time enforced more of his will and emotions. Misero, weaken. Naruto screamed and then watched as the man once again screamed and doubled over in pain. Using the time as a distraction, he took the girl's hand in his own and then ran as fast as his little legs could carry him. However, the man suddenly stood up and screamed, "How dare you, little brat. I'll show you not to attack me." Then the man began to rapidly perform different hand seals and Naruto began to get scared. Naruto stopped running and just performed the second technique taught to him by Custos earlier in the day. Then the man suddenly stopped and said with a shout, "Lightning release. Thunder barrage." Then the sky began to darken and thunder began to gather above them and after a second, a large bolt of thunder suddenly surged down from the sky to them. Hinata screamed as the thunder came closer, then Naruto said with a shout, "Kintego. Protect." As the thunderbolt was about to strike the two children, there was suddenly a blinding light and a large circle seemed to form around them like a force field, then the thunder was seemingly blocked by the shield. The kidnapper, now identified as Akumo, Cloud, ninja from his Hittite, shinobi headband, then seemed shocked for a while, but got out of his shock and began to scream in rage, "I don't care what you can do. I'll kill you." Then he began to do hand seals again, and Naruto could only gasp in shock as the ninja was about to do the same technique, but then Naruto began to gather energy around him as Custos had said, and both said at the same time, "Lightning release. Thunder barrage. Kintego. Protect." The same thing happened and Naruto silently thanked Custos for teaching him that technique. Flashback. Now this next technique that I'm going to teach you is called Kintego, Protect. This technique is a defensive technique and will allow you to create a makeshift shield out of your life energy. To be able to perform this technique, you must also need willpower, but most importantly control. Gather energy around your body and then will it to come to life using your willpower and life energy. This will create a large shield that can protect you and or someone else. This technique requires a lot of energy and will for it to be truly strong. If used correctly, the shield should be able to withstand anything but attacks from underground. The proximity of the technique depends on the amount of energy placed in the technique. Let me demonstrate. Then Custos motioned Naruto to walk back and give him space, which Naruto did. Then he suddenly chanted, "Kintego. Protect." Then a large shield of white covered Custos. After the technique diminished, Custos said, "The blinding light is a bonus and can help provide a distraction or temporarily blind the opponent. Now you try." Flashback end. The Kumo ninja then growled and ran to Naruto. Naruto widened his eyes since the Kumo ninja was going to fight him in hand-to-hand combat. Naruto was quite good, but he was only 5. As the opponent drew closer, Naruto chanted, "Misero. Weaken." The man once again doubled in pain and using this as a temporary distraction, Naruto suddenly sucker punched the ninja, which then threw the ninja over to a tree. The ninja then grunted and stood up from his position and ran to Naruto again. The man threw a punch at Naruto, who dodged in return. "I can use my small height as an advantage." As the ninja began to punch and kick, Naruto just dodged in return, but then the man got irritated and suddenly kicked Naruto faster than before. Naruto got kicked to the ground and then looked at his opponent who was now beginning to go through hand seals and also looked at the little girl for a slight second who was just shaking in fear. Naruto stood up and then began to gather up energy, but it was too late, the man had already finished. Lightning release. Lightning storm. Then Naruto screamed in pain as a giant bolt of lightning hit him from the sky. The lightning bolt shocked his whole body and even the grass at his feet turned black. Naruto then fell on his stomach and cringed in pain. The lightning was still slightly shocking him and small sparks of lightning still continued to randomly shock him. Naruto stood up shakily and saw that the man had turned his back and was about to go and get that little girl again. Naruto grit his teeth together and then muttering his energy, he said, "Wind release. Great breakthrough." The great wind then attacked the unsuspecting ninja and the ninja screamed as he was carried from the wind and then brutally slashed. At the same time, Naruto said, "Misero. Weaken." The man just screamed louder as more pain went through his body and when the wind stopped, it threw him to a tree as if it threw a rag doll. Naruto then ran to the little girl and said, "Say no, heal," and then a white energy surrounded the little girl as she watched in amazement. When the light cleared, the little girl felt so much better. More better than even before she was kidnapped. She felt as if she had all the courage in the world. Naruto smiled at her bewildered expression and remembered just what Custos had said regarding the technique. Flashback. "Now Naruto, this is the last technique that I will teach you, say no, heal." This technique uses life energy to heal. This technique needs focus and proper control of energy to be able to perform. I already know that you are ready for this technique since you have the control and power needed. This technique is a very useful technique and not really draining if done properly. It heals not only injuries, but also cures any body ailments and poison. The greatest effect of the technique is that it completely rejuvenates the body, making the one affected feel better than before. Once mastered, the technique should be able to heal anything but old age. Flashback end. "Are you okay?" Naruto said as he offered her his hand. She took it but seemed to be trying to cover up a blush and failing miserably. "You tth then nkyui I'm hi Hinata." Naruto smiled in return but seemed not to notice her blush. He then said, "I'm Naruto." Naruto just nodded in return and then a figure suddenly landed next to Hinata. "Hinata? Are you okay?" I'm okay, father, and Naruto-kun saved me." Then her father suddenly took notice of the figure next to Hinata and turned to look at him. "The kidnapper is over there." Then Naruto pointed to the twitching body of the Kumo ninja. Hiashi looked at the twitching figure, then his eyes widened and he turned to look at Naruto and said disbelievingly, What? You did that?" Naruto nodded in return and Hiashi just sighed in return and then walked over to the figure and carried him over his back. "We're going to bring the kidnapper to Hokage-sama." Then Hiashi using his free hand held onto Hinata and said, "Naruto, come here." Naruto nodded in understanding, then placed his hand on Hiashi's. A second later, all four figures disappeared in a swirl of leaves. In the Hokage's office, the Hokage was doing what he hated most, paperwork. He sighed in annoyance at the vast piles of paper. Then suddenly, four figures appeared in front of him from what the Hokage guessed was a shunshin. The Hokage widened his eyes, then stood up from his chair and took a fighting stance. However, as all four figures came into proper view and the Hokage saw them, he sighed in relief, then sitting back in his chair, he asked, "Hiashi and Naruto, mind explaining why you're here?" Hiashi laid the man down and then bowed in respect and said, "Hokage-sama, this man was about to kidnap my daughter, but then Naruto here defeated him and waited for me." The Hokage's eyes widened and he said, What? Naruto. "Hi, Gigi, I walking home, but then I saw this weirdo man carrying a bag and I figured out that he was a kidnapper, so I went and then I attacked him. He kept trying to hit me, but I just kept ducking and running. Then I did this move that I saw someone doing. I can't tell Gigi yet." The Hokage just nodded his head skeptically, not exactly trusting all that little 5-year-old Naruto had said. "I'll talk to him in private later on. Don't worry, Hiashi, I'll make sure that Ibiki takes care of the kidnapper." The Hokage then walked over to the man who was laying on the floor on his stomach and turned his head. The Hokage gasped, then growled. "This is that Kumo ambassador." Then the Hokage gritted his teeth and said menacingly, "I'll make sure that Ibiki takes good care of him." Hiashi just nodded in return, then said, "Well, I trust that you will take care of him. I'll be taking my leave now. Come Hinata." "Why yes, fat thur." The Hokage nodded in return as Hiashi disappeared with Hinata via shunshin. Then he turned to Naruto and said, "We need to talk." Naruto gulped and said, "Ear." Chapter 8. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto. Words spoken. Thoughts. Kyuubi or Kazuki speaking. An echo or an angel speaking. Magic or the wind speaking. Recap. The Hokage nodded in return as Hiashi disappeared with Hinata via shunshin. Then he turned to Naruto and said, "We need to talk." Naruto gulped and said, "Ear." Recap end. Naruto scratched the back of his head and said, "Ear, why you see Gigi?" The Hokage looked at Naruto skeptically. "Yes, do you have something to tell me?" Naruto sighed and then thought, he would find out anyway. "Can you tell the Anbu to go away and then put privacy seals in the room?" The Hokage widened his eyes and his jaw dropped. How did Naruto find out about the Anbu and the privacy seals? How does he know about that? The Hokage then got out of his shock and signaled the Anbu to leave the room. After they left, he activated the privacy seals in the room and said, "There, no one can hear or see anything here." Naruto nodded and then closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Then he explained to the Hokage what had happened, starting from when he was nearly beaten to death. Then he went on about Hinako and Kyuubi. He also told the Hokage about Custos and about what he could do. He also spoke about Kushina and what she said. After their talk, let's say the Hokage was shocked and his jaw dropped and he stared at Naruto for a minute. Then suddenly, a bright light filled the room and when the light faded, the figure of a woman could be seen. Naruto looked in shock, then after seeing just who it was, jumped up to the figure's arms and said with a shout, "Hinako ni." Then the Hokage went into more shock and fainted. Half an hour later, the Hokage woke up from his new position on his seat and looked up blearily. Urg. Then as he saw Naruto and that woman, he remembered just what happened and sighed deeply. Then the woman spoke and said, "We need to talk." After their talk, the Hokage nodded his head in understanding. So Naruto is a celestial. Hinako had spoken to the Hokage about Naruto's current living conditions and told Sarutobi that he would need to live in a proper house. Also, his inheritance. Normally, he wouldn't even inherit any of it till he became Chunin or reached the age of 18. The Hokage had agreed and had made some agreements with the celestial woman. Naruto would live in the Namikaze residence and would have a monthly allowance. He would also be allowed to train to become a ninja, despite his young age. Hinako had wore him out about that. Then as Hinako disappeared with Naruto, the Hokage sighed deeply. All this paperwork. Then the Hokage began to bang his head in annoyance. Back to Naruto. Hinako had brought Naruto to his father's family home. The Namikaze residence. It was located behind the Hokage monument and only a select few knew where it was. However, no one but Namikaze blood would ever be able to find it. Was covered by large gates. Naruto had placed his blood in the blood seal and some chakra at the chakra seal in the entrance gate. The gate then opened slowly and Naruto felt his jaw drop. There in front of him was a big beautiful house, but the unique thing about the house was that it was stuck in a tree. It was as if the tree and the house had merged. It was a large tree and sprouted up. The house was very beautiful and looked new. In front of the house was a vast garden of different flowers and plants. There was even a small stream that trickled to the back. Then Hinako spoke, shaking Naruto out of his minute long shock. The house is rather amazing. It was built first, then a distant family member of yours created the tree. The tree is known as the Tree of Magic and was created using the life energy of the three clans, Namikaze, Uzumaki, and Senju. The Senju are the Uzumaki family's distant family. So you are actually related to three Hokages. Then Hinako giggled at Naruto's shocked look and just as he was about to faint, she put her hand on his shoulder and continued speaking. The first Hokage made the tree grow, the Namikaze created the house and using their bloodline, caused the air here to be completely perfect and the Uzumaki used their spirit energy to make the tree have special properties. The flowers here never wilt since the elemental spirits reside here. What? Elemental spirits? Yes, the elemental spirits came to reside here. You will meet them soon. Besides the big house and flower garden, there's more. There are many rooms in the house. 3 bedrooms, one is the main bedroom and the other 2 are guest rooms. There are bathrooms for each room and there is one big kitchen. You may never have to buy any food since all the food is in the gardens. The food is organic and much more nutritious and delicious than the normal food. Besides the kitchen and gardens, the dining room is up in the tree. There are also herb gardens and a small lake. The gates that cover the compound only cover the north, west, and east sides of the compound. The south side has no gate but stretches onto the forest. There are many animals there and rare fruits also. Only Namikaze can go beyond there. Also, there is a great library in the tree. It contains a vast collection of techniques. All owned by you. Naruto smiled and looked up at the sky. I've got a lot of exploring to do. Meanwhile, an Anbu member within a symbol spoke, so he found out about his heritage. I must report to Danzu-sama. Then he disappeared. A week later, Naruto smiled from his position at the top of the great tree. He had already explored through the compound, met with the animals, as well as spoke to the elemental spirits. He had moved to the main bedroom, which was a beautiful room. The walls were painted a light blue color and the room itself was quite large. There was a large king-sized bed in the room. On the right wall was a large mirror along with a dresser. Opposite to the door, there were 2 window doors that led to the balcony. Once opened, large curtains would sway slowly with the wind, giving the room a beautiful midnight effect. There was also a door to the bathroom, which had both a shower and a bathtub, as well as a sink and toilet. Hinako had told him that everything there was man-made and organic. The furniture was made from a special wood created specially by the first Hokage. The water was filtered underground in a special water cleaning system made by the Uzumaki and the second Hokage. Besides that, the kitchen was located on the ground floor. It was rather large and the room was shaped as a square. From the door, there was a straight path all the way to the other side of the kitchen. Opposite the door, there were 2 large doors, which led to the gardens. On the left side of the room, there were blue tiled counters arranged in a square. The only gap was on the right side of the square. Hinako had told him that they were arranged that way by Naruto's mother. It was where she would prepare the food with other women, since a lot of people would usually be invited for dinner there. On the right side of the kitchen, there was a door, which Hinako had said, led to the freezer room. Next to the door, there was a large fridge and a big wood-burning stove. Hinako had said that the stove was powered by chakra. The freezer room was also powered by chakra. Outside from the door to the kitchen, there were gardens, which Hinako had said were created by both the first Hokage and an Uzumaki who controlled nature. The gardens were beautiful and were very large. Hinako had said that they produced every vegetable and fruit as well as herbs, both known and unknown to man. They were bred by and cared for by one of the elemental spirits. Beyond the garden, there was the forest, which housed the different animals. Hinako had said that Naruto would come to know them and he did. A day after Naruto's arrival the animals had come and met with Naruto. Naruto had also spoke with the elemental spirits who agreed to help him. There were actually a lot of them and Naruto had been able to form a bond with all of them as he had with the animals in the forest. Naruto had also been to the library and had been reading more about his bloodlines and its history. He had read that the voice of the wind would forever remain with him and that because of this, wind would be an affinity of his. He remembered the words of the book. The voice of the wind is unlike any of the other bloodlines since it is not a physical manifestation, such as the Kagaya's dead bone pulse. It is also not an eye manifestation such as the Hyuga's Byakugan or the Uchiha Sharingan. It is more of a spirit ability such as the Senju's Mokuton, which also has the ability to calm demons. Instead, the voice of the wind allows an almost godlike control of the wind. The voice of the wind is merely its namesake, however, just the ability to hear the wind's voice. If the wind will accept the individual, he or she will then be able to start the cycle of awakening. This awakening is needed for the individual to be able to fully utilize the ability of the bloodline. The spirits of the wind themselves will decide what abilities the individual may have. However, should the spirits find the individual unworthy, then the individual will suffer the ultimate penalty, death. The awakening ritual will take as long as the spirits permit. During this ritual, they will test the individual to see if he or she is worthy. Naruto had definitely taken the words to heart. He had been training well with his bloodline. He had also done the same with his other bloodline, the heavenly gift. He had found out just what his angel abilities permit when he read some books. He had found out that the Uzumaki family scroll, which was once empty, began to reveal more information. It was about the celestial angels. The celestial angels are a special branch in the angel clan and are known for their unique abilities as well as pure and innocent personalities. Among the angels, they are the ones who are treated the most highly, not because of their abilities, but because of their purity. They are also very respected since they are very rare. The celestial angel will be born almost every 1,000 years, which is why they are very rare. The celestial angels are not only well respected among the angels, but also among the other races, such as the demons, elementals, spirits, undead, and animals. The humans do not really know the celestial angels well, however. The celestial angels are known for their amazing feats for all the races, such as the birth of the Kekkei Genkai, the gift of chakra, the Hell Gates, the spirit realm, and many more. The first celestial is Kami himself, and the other gods and goddesses are also celestial angels. The celestial angels have different abilities, which can range from psychic ability, elemental ability, the gift of prophecy, even raising of the dead. However, one thing is known, all celestial angels will have to go through a certain change. This is a form of their awakening. During this time, the celestial angel will be in extreme pain and agony and may not survive. Because of this, many celestial angels die because they are not given the right treatment. If the celestial angel will pass through his or her awakening, then he will be completely changed from his physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional areas. Each celestial angel has his or her own guardian angel. However, unlike normal guardian angels, the guardian angels must find their celestial angel themselves. Because of this, these special guardian angels are born with a specific birthmark, which will signify their position as a guardian. Most guardians to celestial angels are far stronger than any normal guardian. This is because the celestial angel may need his or her own guardian's help. However, the guardian angel will not be allowed to search for his or her celestial angel to guard, but are given the opportunity to do so when the celestial angel awakens. Should the guardian angel die, he or she will be reborn again to protect the celestial angel. However, if the celestial angel dies, the guardian angel will feel nothing but sadness and pain. This will cause him or her to commit suicide, which happened when the celestial angels were cruelly massacred by the humans. The celestial angel, if he or she passes through the awakening alive, will grow to be strong, and such will become a god or goddess. This will grant them the gift of immortality and they will never die. Should they die, they will be reborn. However, this only applies to a celestial angel who has fully gone through the awakening and has become strong enough to claim his or her own place as a god-goddess. In another place, a crippled figure smiled at the news that his spy had just given him. The child is a celestial. And alive. Then the man slowly thought of his plans and smiled and break. I know it's short, but oh, well. Chapter 9. The Library of History. Chapter 9. The Great Library of History. The angels are organized in several orders, or angelic choirs. In the first sphere of the celestial hierarchy of angels were the seraphim, cherubim, and orphanim. These were the heavenly guardians of God's throne and were said to be never sleeping, but always watching and guarding the throne of God. The seraphim were known as the burning ones and belonged to the highest order of the hierarchy of angels. The seraphim serve as the caretakers of God's throne and were concerned with keeping divinity in perfect order. The seraphim have 6 wings, 2 covering their faces, 2 covering their bodies, feet, and 2 with which they fly. There are 4 of them that surround God's throne, keeping order. The cherubim sat closest to the throne of God, but were the second highest rank in the angelic hierarchy, following the seraphim. The cherubim were a tetrad of living creatures, each having 4 faces. Of a lion, an ox, an eagle, and a man. They are said to have the stature and hands of a man, the feet of a calf, and 4 conjoined wings covered with eyes. However, the ox face is the true face of the cherub. Cherubim are considered the elect beings for the purpose of protection. The cherubim guard the way to the tree of life in Eden's garden and God's throne. The orphanim, also known as the thrones or elders, are angels of the third order of the first sphere of the celestial hierarchy of angels and are living symbols of God's justice and authority and have as one of their symbols the throne of God. The orphanim are unusual looking even compared to the other celestial beings and appear as a barrel-colored wheel within a wheel, their rims covered with hundreds of eyes. They are closely connected with the cherubim and moved and stopped in accordance to the cherubim. So in other words, when the cherubim moved, the orphanim moved, when the cherubim stopped, the orphanim stopped. The Orphanum, or thrones, are beings of tremendous power and movement. They are the keepers of higher, more expanded energies. They ensure that these energies maintain connections and flows through the realms. They act as the conduits of the physical worlds and tend to be more stationary in their existence. They are known as the bringers of justice, and this position makes them some of the most powerful angels. The thrones also have the task of pondering the disposition of divine judgments. They, despite their greatness, are intensely humble, an attribute that allows them to dispense justice with perfect objectivity and without fear of pride or ambition. The angels in the second sphere of the celestial hierarchy of angels work as heavenly governors, and among them were the dominions, virtues, powers or authorities. The dominions were known as the lordships or the hashmalim, hold the task of regulating the duties of lower angels. It is only with extreme rarity that the angelic lords make themselves physically known to humans. They are also the angels who preside over nations. The dominions are believed to look like divinely beautiful humans with a pair of feathered wings, much like the common representation of angels, but they may be distinguished from other groups by wielding orbs of light fastened to the heads of their scepters or on the pommel of their swords. There is a dominion in every nation, known or unknown. They are very powerful, yet graceful and beautiful. Kami himself is a dominion. The virtues or strongholds lie beyond the Ophanum, throne's wheels. Their primary duty is to supervise the movements of the heavenly bodies in order to ensure that the cosmos remains in order. These are the angels that rule over the sun, moon, stars, and other heavenly bodies. They are not spirits of these heavenly bodies, but watch the spirits. They are similar to dominions, but rule over heavenly bodies, not nations. The powers or authorities appear to collaborate in power and authority, as their name implies, with the principalities, rulers. The powers are the bearers of conscience and the keepers of history. They are also the warrior angels created to be completely loyal to God. Their duty is to oversee the distribution of power among humankind, hence their name. The third sphere of the celestial hierarchy of angels hold the angels who serve as heavenly soldiers and messengers. These are the principalities or rulers, the archangels, and the angels. The principalities or rulers are those who collaborate in power and authority with the powers, authorities. The principalities wear crowns and carry scepters. Their duty also is said to be to carry out the orders given to them by the dominions and bequeath blessings to the material world. Their task is to oversee groups of people. They are the educators and guardians of the realm of earth, both individuals as well as groups. They were the ones who inspired to living things ideas of art and science. The archangels are the first in rank in the third sphere of the celestial hierarchy of angels and are messengers. The archangels had 2 large wings, and among them were the 7 archangels. The 7 archangels are guardians of nations and countries and have the duty of protecting their countries. A normal angel may ascend into the rank of an archangel if he is found worthy. Only guardian angels have this honor. The angels, malachim, messengers or angels, are the lowest order of the angels and the most recognized. They are the ones most concerned with the affairs of living things. Within the category of the angels, there are many different kinds with different functions. They can also either be male or female. There are the messenger angels who have the duty of messenger. They have wings like an angel, but do not exhibit them when serving their duty, but instead rely on their abilities. These angels are gifted with the ability of super speed and sometimes teleportation. The messenger angels hold an important duty as messengers and send messages to both angels and demons alike. It is a grave offense to kill a messenger angel, and the penalty is instant death, no matter who has done so. There are the death angels, or reapers, who have the duty of sending souls to hell. Among the humans, they are known as the death gods. They have dark black wings, but are hardly ever seen with their wings and have as their weapon a scythe. These angels seek the souls of corrupted men and women. They have the supreme task of taking their souls and then sending them to hell. The great leader of the death angels is known as the Shinigami, who holds the keys of hell. There are the guardian angels who have the role of guardian. They are given a person whom they will guard and they will be watchful. They cannot completely interfere or show themselves, but they can give small pushes every now and then. However, should the one they guard become corrupted, the guardian angel will be forced to leave. This is why only a select few have guardian angels. The corruption had caused the guardian angel to be forced to leave. Also, because of the corruption, more and more humans die. The guardian angels themselves hate corrupted humans, since that is what caused the death of the celestial angels. There are the healing angels who have the role of healers. They have the ability of healing, to heal injuries. They are a special branch in the clan of angels since they have these abilities. Most healing angels are female. There are the angels of prophecy who have psychic abilities and have the gift of prophecy. They are able to see the future. However, they only see glimpses, and most of these visions are warnings to the whole clan. Before the attempted murder of the humans on the celestial angels, an angel of prophecy had seen visions and had tried to warn the others. However, he was ignored and the consequences of their ignorance was dire. After that incident, the angels have truly come to respect and listen to the angels of prophecy. All the angels of prophecy departed the shinobi countries to Eden, so there are none left. Although there are priestesses, they do not have half the power that the angels of prophecy have, since the angels of prophecy also had psychic powers. It was thanks to an angel of prophecy that dwelt in Eden that the angels of Eden were able to foresee the birth of the last celestial. There were the warrior angels who were skilled warriors. They had elemental abilities, meaning they had control over the elements. They were also skilled in the use of weapons. They were the ones who went to war. There were also putty, who were more of spirits than angels. The putty are not a part of the angelic hierarchy, but are innocent souls, looking like winged children. They stayed with the cherubim and the orphanum. Now only one angel was left in the world, and that angel was a celestial. However, both the angels and the celestial angels would not leave him unprepared. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto. Words spoken, thoughts. An echo or an angel speaking. Ayubi or Kazuki speaking. Magic or the wind. Naruto was walking around his compound when he remembered his meeting with the elementals. Flashback. Naruto was still exploring the gardens when he saw a small lake and a woman. She was naked and was bathing. Naruto, who was just 5, approached the bathing woman and asked, "Who are you?" Naruto had said this while tilting his head, making him look quite cute. The woman turned to him and smiled, then got out of the water and took a towel and said, "I'm Ondine, a water elemental. Who might you be, child?" Naruto smiled, then said, "My name's Naruto. Nice to meet you, Ni-chan. You have a cool name." Ondine smiled and then said, "So little Naruto, what brings you here?" "I live here now. My daddy and mommy used to live here." Ondine smiled, then thought, "So Minato and Kushina's child. So you're a water elemental. That's so cool." Ondine giggled at his cuteness, then said with a smile, "Why, thank you Naruto. I'm very happy to see Minato and Kushina's child." Naruto opened his mouth in amazement. "Ni-chan knows my mommy and daddy. So you know mommy and daddy?" Yes, I did." Then Ondine put on her clothes, which was a pure white tunic and light blue sandals. Naruto looked at her properly and saw that she was very beautiful. She had blonde hair, not as bright as Naruto's though, and she also had a small necklace of a blue dolphin. "You're really pretty, Ni-chan." Ondine smiled at the child and said, "Thank you Naruto. I accept you and pledge myself to you." Naruto smiled and said, "Really? Thanks." Ondine smiled and then disappeared in a swirl of water, but not before saying, "Watch out for the other elementals." Naruto just watched in amazement and when she disappeared, continued to explore the garden. After exploring the garden, he began to explore the big tree of magic, which he had decided to nickname the big tree. As he was climbing on the branches, he saw a man sleeping on one of the branches. He then climbed up to the man's position and took a good look at him. The man had brown hair and wore nothing but a pair of pants. Confused, Naruto shook the man up and asked, "Hey, mister, were you sleeping on the tree?" The man opened his eyes and looked blearily. He saw a small blonde child and then said, I was tired. How'd you get here kid?" "I climbed." Then the man completely opened his eyes and looked at Naruto. "Who looks like Minato's and Kushina's child?" "You climbed." Naruto nodded his head and then said with a big smile, "Yep. I'm Naruto. What's your name mister?" Naruto once again tilted his head. The man chuckled, then ruffled his hair and said, "Nice to meet you, the name's Gollum." Then Gollum jumped down from the branch, "I'm an earth elemental. And I accept you." Then Gollum bowed and after bowing, walked backwards until he was against a tree and then merged slowly with the tree. "See you Naruto." Naruto looked in confusion, then ran to where Gollum had disappeared. "See you." Then Naruto continued to explore the tree. He passed the dining room, which was in a clearing up in the trees. It was a large circle made completely of wood. In the middle of the circular clearing was a big circular dining table. Beyond that was a sort of balcony, which let Naruto see the whole compound. Naruto continued to explore the tree, however, and kept climbing up. He eventually climbed to the top and looked out from his place on a branch. He then saw a woman in the sky, laughing. Naruto felt his jaw drop and he said with a shout, "Wow. That's so cool." The said woman stopped in the air and hovered, then looked at the little boy watching her with stars in his eyes, and then she smiled, "Kawaii. What's your name little boy?" The little boy looked at her in amazement and said while tilting his head, "My name's Naruto. What's yours Ni-chan?" "Naruto. Little fish cake." Then she giggled and then said, "My name's Sylph. I'm an air elemental." Naruto then smiled brightly and said, "That's awesome. Wanna be friends?" She giggled, then hovered down to Naruto's position and gave him a kiss. "I wouldn't mind being your friend. I accept you and pledge myself to you." Then she giggled and disappeared in a swirl of air. "See you around Naru-chan." Naruto smiled. "I've got 3 elementals to accept me." Then he climbed back down to the ground and went to explore the underground. He saw a door to a big room and decided to walk inside. After walking inside, he gasped at the amount of scrolls located inside. There were more than 500 scrolls, and each scroll was arranged in alphabetical order and in order of category. Fire, water, wind, earth, lightning, etc. Then as he was walking around, he saw a man, dressed in robes, reading a scroll on one of the many chairs on the table situated in the middle of the very large room. He walked over to the man, who had yet to notice him, and due to Naruto's height, Naruto couldn't see what the man was reading, so he instead tugged on the man's robe. At least he's not like that other man, he's wearing clothes. The man then noticed him and spoke in a friendly manner, "What are you doing here, little boy? Are you lost?" Naruto shook his head and said quite cutely, "Nope, I live here. I'm exploring." Then he grinned widely. The man chuckled and said, "Might your name be Naruto?" Then Naruto tilted his head and asked, "How do you know that?" The man once again chuckled again and ruffled his hair, "I was a friend of your mother and father." "Really? That's cool. Are you an elemental?" Then the man smiled and said, "Yep, my name's Haru. I'm a fire elemental. Will you accept me too?" "Too? Wow, that's amazing." He's already got the others to accept him. Then Soul stood up and bowed, "I accept you also." Then he disappeared in a swirl of fire. After that, Naruto didn't see them anymore. Naruto giggled at the memories. It was time to go back to the library. After reaching his destination, the doors opened. It's always like that, it opens by itself. Naruto smiled at the side and walked to the history section. He had managed to finish reading the book on the hierarchy of the angels. However, he still wondered which angel he was. Then reaching out for a book entitled The Elementals. He examined it first, then slowly opened the cover and began to read. Elementals are beings either born from or with a strong affinity to one or more elements, and often with a debilitating weakness to opposing elements. Elementals are usually anthropomorphic or humanoid in shape, however, they each have elemental manifestations, which are the elements they represent, such as an earth elemental having a body of stone, or a fire elemental being a living flame or a dark figure enshrouded by smoke and fire. Elementals are said to be but mythological creatures, but they are in fact real and are actually supernatural beings. The elementals each have different abilities and are grouped with their own element. Elements are properties of various objects, living things, and the environment. These elements work together in harmony as not to upset the balance set by the celestial angels. Fire is the element of power, consisting of overpowering force tempered by the unflinching will to accomplish tasks and desires. Fire is most commonly depicted as a destructive but a life-giving element. Environments with an affinity to fire tend to be hot, hostile and dangerous. Fire is invariably opposed by water. The elementals of this element tend to be quite destructive and aggressive when angry, yet very passionate and warm. Elementals of this element are said to draw power from the sun and other solar objects. The leader of the fire elementals is Soul, who controls the sun. Water is the element of change, being able to adapt to almost any situation, as well as dealing with the flow of energy. Water is often depicted as a restorative element due to its real-life importance in sustaining life. Water environments tend to be serene and abundant with life. Water is opposed by fire. The elementals of this element are peaceful, but can be very violent when provoked. Master water elementals are able to control all forms of water and can use their defense as their offense. They can also use their opponent's own force against them. Elementals of this element draw power from the moon and the ocean. The leader of the water elementals is Yu, who controls the moon and ocean. Wind is the element of freedom and caprice. Environments which have an affinity to wind tend to be at high elevations or actually suspended in the air. Wind exists in opposition to earth. The elementals of this element tend to emphasize speed over strength, along with offense over defense. They are also peaceful and are also able to adapt to almost any situation. Though much more peaceful than water elementals, they also become violent, but only when all things precious are at stake. Elementals of this element draw power from air around them. The leader of the wind elementals is the angel Inanna. Earth is the element of substance, making earth elementals in general proud, persistent and enduring. Earth is depicted as an element of stability, and most earth elementals are physically strong or imposing. Elementals aligned with this element can have tendencies toward either passive or aggressive behavior, and most favor defense over offense. Its environment can be either barren with soil or with abundance and life. Earth is naturally opposed to air. Elementals of this element draw power from the earth and are quite similar to nature elementals. The leader of the earth elementals is also the leader of the nature elementals, Gaia, or Mother Earth. Either ether is the element of purity and goodness, often commonly associated with life and the living. Ether tends to be more abstract than the other four elements in that it has no clear physical manifestation. It can be depicted simply as pure energy with no properties or as the power underlying the other four elements. The celestial angels are the only ones to use this element. The planets and other heavenly bodies are said to be created from this element. Ether can have either restorative or destructive tendencies, but sometimes it can be both. Ether is what separates the celestial angels from the angels, who have a limited control over either. Celestial angels have full control over either, but must train to truly be masters of this element. The leader of this element is the leader of the celestial angels. Ice is a deprivation of water, but is often treated as a separate element. Ice elementals are not water elementals and can control only ice, but not water. These elementals are more likely to bear a cruel disposition and exhibit more aggressive behaviors. Environments with an affinity to ice also tend to be more hostile and treacherous to navigate, not unlike icy environments in the real world. The leader of this element is Shiva, the Ice Queen. Electricity, regarded as a derivation of air and/or fire, is sometimes treated as a separate element. Like elementals aligned with air, those aligned with electricity or lightning can be whimsical, but, like fire, it has a greater penchant for aggression and is very energetic or spontaneous. Elementals aligned with electricity apply the idea the best defense is the best defense. The leader of the elementals of this element is the witch, Maya. Nature is the element of life. Nature is both a derivation of earth water and a separate element, but it mostly connects and concerns with all life. Its attributed characteristics are various in earth characteristics like an appreciator of nature, philosophical, but a little bit stubborn, often detaches off from the world, and sometimes refuses to cooperate or share ideas with others. Also, plant characteristics have the potency to be feral, but can be also tame. Nature is a very important element and coexists with the four elements of fire, water, wind, and earth. Its attributes can be strong and flexible at the same time, like a bamboo, and has a warm and expansive character. It is nourished by water and it ignites fire. It outgrows earth but is shredded off by metal. Nature elementals are very connected to the earth and can speak to and hear the voice of the earth. Also, nature elementals are very spiritual, and many different spiritual races are nature elementals. The leader of the nature elementals is also the leader of the earth elementals, Gaia, or Mother Earth. Darkness is the element of shadows and death, often commonly associated with the forces of evil, dead, or the undead. However, not all dark elementals are evil. Darkness is both an offensive and defensive element, and wielders of this element are very powerful and sometimes present some kind of threat to everyone. Different races are able to use this technique, but only a few are able to fully use darkness to its full potential. Some vampires, death angels, demons, and other races are able to use this element. Master users of this element are able to use the powers of the void, which involves black holes. There is no ultimate leader of this element, but there are great figures who are able to fully utilize the element of darkness to its full potential, such as the Shinigami, the Vampire Queen, the King and Queen of the Underworld, the King of Demons, and many more. The void, though not considered a living being, is where the dark elementals draw their powers from and is considered by some the true leader of the darkness element. After reading, Naruto put the book back and went for a walk, but then the seals of the door shone brightly, which meant that Naruto had a guest. Naruto was confused, but decided to answer it anyway. When the seals would activate, Naruto would receive a psychic message. So walking to the gate, he opened it warily and saw a masked figure, who closely resembled the Anbu, but was slightly different due to the Na-root sign on the mask. Naruto then asked, still wary of the masked figure, "Who are you?" The masked figure spoke, "I mean no harm Uzumaki-san, but Danzu-sama has requested a chance to speak with you." Then the masked figure bowed in respect. Naruto noticed that it was a man who spoke, but was slightly unnerved due to the way the man spoke, without emotion. "Who is this Danzu-sama of yours?" "He is my master and has sent me as his messenger." Naruto nodded in understanding and then after a few seconds of thinking, spoke, "I see, then I will meet your master here in my home. We will speak then." Though he was only 5, Naruto was not stupid and knew more than a 5-year-old child knew. He had taken care in speaking with the man and had been reading the man's hidden intentions, whether there be any, but Naruto noticed no lie or doubt. This was another ability of Naruto's, to see the aura of others for any deception. The man spoke in monotone, "Very well Uzumaki-san. I will inform Danzu-sama. He has already decided a certain time, should you accept his invitation. And what would that time be?" "Danzu-sama has requested that the time be noon time." Naruto smiled and bowed, saying, "Very well. Give my regards to your master and I will see him tomorrow noon for lunch." The man bowed back and disappeared. Naruto sighed, then walked back to his house, closing the gates as he passed. Then he slowly prepared to sleep and dream of tomorrow's activities. The masked figure appeared in an underground facility and bowed after appearing, saying, "He has accepted your invitation Danzu-sama and will see you tomorrow in his home at noon for lunch." Then he went on one knee. Danzu nodded and said with a voice that demanded respect, "Very good. I will see him tomorrow." Then Danzu thought for a few seconds and spoke again, "You are now dismissed." The man stood up again and bowed, saying, "Thank you Danzu-sama. I will now leave." And the man disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Danzu smiled and spoke softly, "I will meet you tomorrow celestial angel." In another place. A young girl was training with swords, sparring with a clearly older man. After a few minutes of nothing but swordplay, both stopped and bowed to each other. "Training is finished. You have done very well." The girl smiled and then said, "Thank you sensei. I do my best." The man then smiled back and walked away. Meanwhile, the girl looked up at the sky and smiled softly, the time has nearly come. Chapter 10. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto. Words spoken, thoughts. An echo or an angel speaking. Ayubi or Kazuki speaking. Magic or the wind speaking. Naruto woke up to the bright light of the sun from his balcony window doors. He slowly got up and closed his eyes, reveling in the warm embrace of the sunlight. Then he slowly got up and with the saying of a word, his bed was made. He walked over to his bathroom and began to brush his teeth to get rid of the morning breath. After brushing his teeth and washing his face, he relieved himself and then washed his hands after. He slowly stripped and turned on the shower's warm water. Then he walked inside and relaxed in the warmth of the water. He washed, shampooed, rinsed, and then scrubbed his body with soap. After taking a shower, he walked to his room and got changed. He put on simple training clothes, a white t-shirt with a Uzumaki swirl in the front, some black shorts, and black shinobi sandals. Then after changing, he went to the garden and began to pick out some strawberries and raspberries. After picking enough, he walked to the kitchen and washed them thoroughly. After placing them in a small basket, he walked up the stairs to the dining room up in the tree. There, he began to eat, thinking of his meeting at noon. I wonder what we're going to talk about. After eating all the berries, he began to train. He set out some clones to go to the library, some for chakra control exercises, and then some for his different jutsus. He himself was meditating. While meditating, he found himself in his mindscape, a large meadow with beautiful flowers and trees. There, he saw Kazuki sleeping against a tree and being the devious little child he was, he pounced on the unsuspecting demon. Kazuki almost choked since Naruto had jumped on him, but just made a grumbling noise. "PSK kid, be careful." Naruto smiled from his position on Kazuki's chest and then buried his face in Kazuki's neck, then mumbled something. "What's that, kid?" Kazuki said, bringing his ear close to Naruto's head. Then Naruto mumbled it out again and Kazuki just chuckled. "Sorry," Naruto had said, head still in Kazuki's neck. Then Kazuki adjusted their position so that Naruto was on his lap, head still buried in his neck. Kazuki ruffled his hair, then spoke. "You okay, kid?" Naruto turned his to look at Kazuki as he answered the question, saying, "I'm fine, it's just will my parents be proud of me?" Kazuki snorted, then replied, "Of course they'll be, kid. I'm already proud of you myself." Naruto then smiled, buried his head in Kazuki's chest and said, "Thanks Kazunai." After a few minutes of silence, Naruto stood up and said, "Time to train, Kazunai." Kazuki smirked and then after standing up, got ready to train Naruto. After their training, Naruto was on the floor, panting and out of breath. However, he had a happy expression on his face. Then taking the hand that was offered to him, Naruto got back up to his feet and smiled brightly, then spoke, "Thanks Kazunai. The training was awesome." Kazuki smiled, then replied, "No problem, kid. Never knew you could last that long." Naruto smiled, then got out of his mindscape. After getting up, he noticed that his muscles were kind of stiff, so he stretched for a good amount of minutes, then looked at the time. It was almost noon, 11:20. So Naruto created more clones to prepare lunch, while he himself took another shower since he felt sticky, even if his body didn't. After taking a shower, he wore a pure white kimono with a Uzumaki swirl and Namika's family symbol at the back of the kimono and golden foxes at the side of the kimono. The belt used to tie the kimono was an orange color. Then he combed his hair and looked at his reflection and smiled. He looked at the time and noticed it was only 11:45. He then went to the dining room up in the tree and prepared the table. After that, he checked with his clones and noticed that lunch was nearly finished. He then went down to the basement and activated the security seals and protection seals with his blood and chakra. Then after doing so, he went to the front yard and looked at the flowers. After a few minutes, the seals for the gate activated, meaning a visitor. He went to the gate and opened it. There, he saw an old man who looked crippled. He was with two masked men. "Pleasure to finally meet you, Naruto-kun. I am Danzo. Likewise, please come in for lunch, but please don't bring them in." "Ah, very well." Then Danzo dismissed the two masked men, who bowed to Danzo, then disappeared. Naruto opened the gate and let Danzo in. Danzo looked around in amazement at all the life, as well as the compound itself. However, Naruto led the way and walked down the straight path which led to the tree. "This is the front yard, the flowers never wilt, since elemental spirits take care of the compound." Danzo nodded, but was intrigued elemental spirits. Then as they neared the tree, Naruto spoke, "This is the big tree, known as the Tree of Magic. My ancestors created the tree, as well as the house." Danzo listened attentively and watched as Naruto teleported them to the dining room, which Danzo saw was in the tree. There, Naruto smiled gently and then spoke, "Please sit. Lunch should be ready." Danzo sat, but looked at the amazing view and noticed that he could see beyond the mountain. Then as he was thinking, food was placed in front of him by what Danzo noticed were clones. They placed different foods on the table and then bowed to Naruto. "Please eat." Danzo nodded and both spoke, "I did Akamatsu." Then they began to eat and talk between themselves. Naruto spoke about the compound and of himself, while Danzo spoke about his adventures as a young shinobi, and he also spoke of root. So you made root? Yes I did. I saw the need for another force that would take care of the more difficult missions. Naruto nodded, understanding. There were always missions that no one wanted to take due to the difficulty of the mission. Would you like to join root? Naruto then looked at Danzo, shocked at the sudden invitation. After a few minutes of silence, Naruto finally answered, yes, I'll join root. Danzo smiled. He had a soon-to-be shinobi with more than enough potential. All he needed to do was train him. In another place, a girl was sitting, looking at the sky. It's soon time. She was waiting for her time. However, she was very patient and knew that there would be a perfect time. All she had to do was wait. She was a guardian angel, entrusted to guard the last celestial. However, she could not yet guard him since he had yet to awaken. So in the meantime, she trained to be the best. She was very gifted, they had said. She was very well trained in the areas of sword fighting and hand-to-hand combat. She already had her own sword, named Serenity. This sword was hers and only hers. No one could use Serenity unless they were the owner. She remembered the first time with Serenity when she was but a young girl. Now, she was very skilled and had already beaten her own master. She smiled since that was the last test for any master and apprentice. To surpass the master. She was also strong the area of hand-to-hand combat and could take down even those 5 times her body's height and weight. She had already awakened her wings and they were a pure white color. She was also very gifted in the use of the elements. She could use the elements of air, water, and ether. She had already mastered them. Air and water first, then ether. However, she could not fully use either since she was not a celestial, but she made up for her limited expertise in either with her unlimited ability in air and water. She also had experience in the area of healing and she was already in her intermediate studies in medicine. She had far to go for that, but she was still very strong. Now all she had to do was wait. As Danzo left the compound, Naruto continued to think back at the time. Would you like to join root? Naruto then looked at Danzo, shocked at the sudden invitation. After a few minutes of silence, Naruto finally answered, yes, I'll join root. Danzo smiled. He had a soon-to-be shinobi with more than enough potential. All he needed to do was train him. However, I am already training with someone. You're already training in your Kekkei Genkai. Naruto was a bit shocked at that. How'd you know? Why you know about my Kekkei Genkai? Danzo chuckled at the boy's shocked expression. Yes, I know about it, don't worry, I'm sure I can help in that too. Naruto smiled brightly, then said, thanks Danzo Oji-san. Danzo chuckled a bit, I have a nickname. After that they just spoke a bit, then Danzo had left, leaving Naruto to his thoughts. Was that a good choice? Time skip 4 years later. Naruto bowed to Danzo as he approached him and from the confines of his mask, spoke, how are you, Danzo Oji-san? Danzo shook his head at the disrespect but accepted it nonetheless. The conditioning did nothing to Naruto as he never became like one of Danzo's other root members. Naruto had emotion. No matter how Danzo made him take the emotion conditioning, nothing worked. However, that did not matter as Danzo came to see Naruto as his most powerful weapon, as well as his surrogate nephew. Despite Naruto's continual cheerfulness, Naruto knew when to be serious, and when he was just like the rest of the root, emotionless in battle that is. I am fine Naruto, I see that your mission is finished, yes. Hi Danzo Oji-san. I completed the mission given to me. Very good. Naruto smiled at the praise and responded, thank you Danzo Oji. That was one thing that Danzo could not stop Naruto in doing. Naruto always referred to him as Oji-san, however, during times of seriousness, Naruto of course referred to him as Danzo-sama, but that's not the point. Eventually, Danzo just gave up on the reprimands and mental conditioning. How is your training Naruto? I hope you are doing well. Hi, I am almost finished in my elemental training. This was an issue that shocked Danzo at first. For when Naruto was first trained, Naruto would absorb the information given to him like a sponge. This made it all the much easier, and Danzo had finished training Naruto after 2 years, when Naruto was but 7. Naruto was now 9 years old, yet had the experience and ability of a much older man. Danzo had already guessed that Naruto had surpassed him by far. Naruto was a prodigy, and his bloodlines made him all the more stronger, for even without the bloodlines, Danzo knew that Naruto would still be very strong. Danzo was continually supervising the boy's training and was very impressed at the progress of his youngest and strongest student. Naruto had mastered more than one Taijutsu style, the Northern Shaolin style, the Praying Mantis style, and the Dance of the Leaf were but some of those styles. Each style Naruto mastered was performed at perfection. So perfect that the Sharingan could not possibly copy them. Naruto had slightly altered each style to make sure of the fact. He had already stated to Danzo that I don't want those cheating copycats to steal my style and had altered each style to suit him. Naruto had also created a few taijutsu styles himself, such as the Tripudio de Uranicus Angelus, Dance of the Heavenly Angel, and the Donum de Luna, Gift of the Moon. Naruto was also a master at Kenjutsu. He had managed to create a style by himself, since no style could complement his weapon. He created 2 styles. The Donum de Luna, Gift of the Moon, which he had managed to create into a taijutsu style also, and the Tripudio de Nex Angelus, Dance of the Death Angel, which he had created in memory of his mother. His weapon was a scythe called Falx de Nex Angelus, the scythe of the Death Angel, which his mother had passed on to him. The scythe was very large and was about 6 feet in height, meaning it towered over Naruto. However, Naruto could carry the scythe with much ease, as if he weren't carrying one. The rod itself was black, and the blade was created of a certain indestructible metal. He had read in his mother's scroll that the Shinigami created the scythe himself, and that the scythe had a mind of its own. Naruto had found the scythe's name when he had created a bond with it. The scythe's name was Anima, meaning life or soul. Naruto could also use the scythe to further strengthen his spells. No one could touch his scythe or wield it, but Naruto. Many others had found out the hard way. If one who is not the owner of the scythe take hold of the scythe will take the offender's soul. It was a scythe created by the Shinigami himself, Naruto had said, so those results were expected. Beyond taijutsu and kenjutsu, Naruto was an absolute master at ninjutsu and fuinjutsu. Naruto was still training in his elemental training, however, but he was still very powerful. Naruto at first had an affinity with only air, but after receiving the elemental's gifts, he had become an omni-elemental, meaning he could control any and all elements. Naruto trained with the elemental spirits in this area. He also trained with Hinako and Kazuki in his physical, mental, and elemental training. Kazuki helped him boost his physique and physical qualities, as well as in Naruto demonic abilities, which he had inherited from Kazuki himself due to their bond. Hinako instructed him in his angelic abilities and needless to say, Naruto was doing well. He had awakened his wings, but had not yet fully awakened. Hinako also taught him in the art of healing, and Naruto had easily gotten this since he had perfect control, despite his unlimited energy. When Danzu had been teaching him different jutsus, Naruto had mastered them all to an extent where he did not need to use hand seals. His other bloodline, the voice of the wind, was already mastered thanks to the wind spirits and Hinako. He was also a renowned seal master and had surpassed both Jiraiya and his father, since neither had ever been taught in the art of angelic and demonic sealing. His Jinjutsu had also been built to perfection by Danzu, Kyuubi, and Hinako. This perfection awakened an ability in his angelic bloodline, and he now had a taijutsu called the Eye of Truth. He could see through any lie and could also analyze and scan any situation. This ability caused him to become a genius, and he could see a person's strengths, weaknesses, etc. just through close observation. He also had different summons. He could summon kitsune, demon fox, doves, butterflies, wolves, and many more. He had developed a spirit bond with animals and as such, could summon them. He had many animals in his compound and he had managed to earn the respect of each animal species. He could fully summon Kazuki or Kyuubi, as the others referred to him. Also, his training with Custos was still progressing and Custos was teaching him angelic skills, just like Hinako. He had also mastered his family's techniques, including his father's Hiraishin and Rasengan. He did not use Hiraishin unless needed to. However, he had altered the Hiraishin so that the seal that was to be placed on the designated area no longer needed to be put manually. Instead of having to touch the designated object or living thing, he could mentally create the seal and then place it on the designated object or living thing without having to touch it him or her. This was an amazing ability, but it had taken him a very long time to create and then master. It required perfect control, focus, and mental ability. His father's other technique, the Rasengan, had also been mastered by Naruto. Naruto had completed all the stages and had created many variations of the technique, such as the Rasen Shuriken, Great Bowl Rasengan, Twin Rasengan, Wind Release. Rasengan, Wind Release. Rasen Shuriken, Fire Release. Rasengan, and Fire Release. Rasen Shuriken. However, he had yet to mix earth, water, and lightning with his Rasengan. Now Naruto was standing before Danzu, wearing a blank mask on his face and the occasional Anbu-style uniform. These were his work clothes as Naruto had dubbed them. "You're dismissed." "Hi, Danzu Oji." Danzo smiled and then watched the young boy disappear, leaving no trace of his presence. Naruto appeared in his compound and took a shower, then got changed. He was the only one who was able to teleport so easily to his house. His house was very beautiful and Naruto was proud of it. Only Danzu and the third Hokage had been inside, and needless to say, whenever they entered the compound, they could not hold their shock. Then Naruto laughed as she took a shower at the mention of his other Oji-san. Flashback. Naruto was standing in front of the Hokage and the privacy seals were activated. "Be what?" "I joined Read Oji-san." No, you will quit now." Who knows what Danzo might. Oji-san, you might become like Oji-san and then you'll just be an emotionless Oji-san. Naruto finally shouted. He was getting quite irritated at the third's words. I'll be fine Oji-san. I've already done the conditioning thing and Danzo Oji said it's fine if I have emotions as long as I complete the mission. And I want to make my parents proud. I want to be strong so I can honor their memories. The third Hokage sighed, knowing that this discussion would most definitely end up with Naruto winning. Fine, fine. Then Naruto suddenly brightened up and jumped on the poor old man. Thank you, thank you. I promise to do my best but you'd better not end up dying or something. Of course I won't die Oji-san. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. The Hokage chuckled, then released the little boy. Did I give you my blessing? Then Naruto smiled and deactivated the seals and was about to leave when he heard his surrogate grandfather sigh in annoyance and then glare at the thick piles of paperwork before him. Naruto tilted his head in confusion and then said, Oji-san. If there's too much paperwork, why not just let the Kage Bunshin do them? Then the Hokage suddenly lifted his gaze onto Naruto and his mouth fell into an O. Naruto just smiled, then disappeared in a wind shunshin, but not before saying, Jana Oji-san. Flashback end. Needless to say, after that incident, the Hokage had allowed Naruto entrance into the Hokage library. Let's just say, Naruto finished reading all the scroll in just 2 months. He had also managed to master each and every technique, but that took much longer than 2 months. Then Naruto finished his shower and got out, putting his towel on. Then he went to his room and got ready for the day. His usual attire was that of a black tank top, then an armored vest with Konoha's, the Uzumaki's, the Namikaze's, and the Senju symbol on it. He put on black armored fingerless gloves and also some weights on his arms. Then he put on a pair of trousers that reached down below the knee. He also put on leg weights and then put on some combat boots, specially designed to absorb any impact, no matter how strong. He put on his mask, a blank mask with nothing on it but a kanji of Shinigami's death angel. Then he took his special coat crafted by the elementals. It was a black cloak that provided intangibility, invisibility, and comfort. It was crafted from a special type of fabric that could meld into shadows. With the cloak, he could not be sensed, seen, or recognized. Not even the Byakugan or Sharingan could negate its effects. Also, he could meld into shadows, thanks to the cloak. The cloak was like the Grim Reaper's in which it had a hood, was very long and black. It covered his blonde hair and even his shoes. However, it did not hinder his mobility or speed. Then after putting it on, he slowly appeared in the Hokage's office. There, the Hokage was waiting, along with Danzo. When he arrived, the seals in the room activated and it was then that Naruto removed his mask. Konnichiwa wa Sarutobi Oji-san, Danzo Oji-san. Then both of the elders smiled and replied, Konnichiwa Naruto-kun. This time the third spoke, Naruto, it seems that you are not really socializing with any of the children your age. At this, Naruto scoffed. He was clearly not impressed with the current generation's ninja 2Bs. We want you to take a team, Danzo finished for Sarutobi. Naruto widened his eyes and immediately, what? Why? I don't want to take a team. Then the Hokage replied, we want you to socialize with those of your age, so if you don't take a team, we'll make you join a team. That's even worse. Fine but not a team, I'd rather have an apprentice. The Hokage sighed, at least you'll take someone. Fine. An apprentice. Then Danzo spoke to Naruto, look at their files, then observe each student in class today. Naruto nodded and created some clones to read the files while he went to observe the students. He could do this since his body-splitting technique had been mastered to an extent that Naruto could see through all his clones, no matter the distance. So Naruto bowed, then put on his mask and left through the shadows. The Hokage sighed once more, saying, at least he's taking someone. Naruto arrived in the academy and was hiding through the shadows, watching each and everyone closely. No one had sensed him. Not that Naruto expected them to. Then Naruto looked at each person until he saw a certain bunch. Yamanaka Ino. Clearly a fangirl, but has great potential. File says she's got potential. Might even become just like her father, but scores above average. Taijutsu is low genin. She seems to have the potential to become an interrogator since her chakra control's pretty good. Also, has potential in becoming a medic nin or genjutsu specialist. Nara Shikamaru. Typical Nara. Lazy and like they say troublesome, looks to me like a hidden genius, has potential to be a strategist and interrogator. Akamichi Chaoji. Likes to eat a lot, eh? Seems to be quite good in his family's jutsu, has potential to be a close-range fighter. And Yuzuka Kiba and his ninja Nakamaru dead last. Seems to be the boasting type, feels sorry for whoever his sensei is, but seems to have potential too as a hunter nin and close-range fighter. Abiram Shino. Typical Abiram. Quiet, yet a genius. Seems to be one of the most qualified in being a ninja, potential to be hunter nin and strategist. Hyuga Hinata. Hinata-chan's definitely grown, wonder how Niji is. Ha. She has the most potential out of all the girls in the room. Just needs a bit of confidence and she'll be perfect in close range fighting as well as in becoming a medic nin. Haruno Sakura pathetic file says Kunoichi of the year, yet she's weak. Typical fangirl too, though she seems to have the book smarts, not as smart as me, but oh, well, seems to have perfect chakra control, but small capacity. Has potential to become a medic nin if she gets out of that fangirl phase. Uchiha Sasuke, how the mighty have fallen, seems to be an avenger. I can't believe this is Itachi Nai's brother, quite pathetic. I wonder how'd he survive the massacre. Definitely not my pick. Has potential though, but he's too much of an Uchiha to reach that full potential. After analyzing each student and reading their files, Naruto had selected the perfect apprentice. He appeared back at the Hokage's office. So picked yet? Naruto took off his mask, showing his grinning face. Yep, I've picked Cliffinger. What if Naruto has divine angel bloodline naruhina? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.